Chapter 1440. There were some secrets in this world. Such a statement seemed to be something that only scholars and dupes would say. As long as the listener showed a trace of interest, they would continue with a lot of specious statements. Apart from making the listener feel that they did not understand, there was no other use for them. Perhaps there was some useful information mixed in, or perhaps they had unintentionally told a part of the truth, even if it was made up by themselves. Or perhaps, what kind of secrets or truths existed in this world? Yao Guang had been thinking about these things. Ever since she was a child, she had been nagged by her grandfather, her teachers, and her friends in the academy. Later, when she joined the team to resist the demonic wave, she would hear some mysterious statements from time to time. However, those who said these things seemed to be out of habit or to tease the newcomers. They would only mention it once and never continue. Perhaps they themselves did not understand or know the answer to these things, but they had left a small seed in her heart. That seed still sprouted in her heart, but it had been buried for so long that she had almost forgotten about it. Compared to those insignificant things, resisting the demonic wave and fighting the monsters were obviously more important. Over time, she had forgotten that she had fantasized about those seemingly unrealistic things. Until now, when she heard Yin Nuoxing's words, even though it was just a casual remark, it still dug out those buried memories. This world, many years ago, there was no demonic wave, and the continent was not as divided as it was now. At that time, the sky was still very pure, and there was only one ocean. There was no name, and there was no everlasting wilderness. The two huge demonic waves originated from human settlements, and the northern shrine was still a place of pilgrimage in the hearts of countless people. The number of travelers on the road would never decrease. Occasionally, there would be some major incidents, and it would only be a fight between the lords of various regions because they did not like each other. It would not evolve into a large-scale war. This world lasted for a long time, and no one knew how many tens of thousands of years had passed. Until one day, the demonic wave came. The world suddenly fell into another cycle. Destruction and rebirth were constantly happening in this world. The war between the Order and the demons began. Humans and the demons fought back and forth. The territory of the demons was suppressed to the point that it could not grow at all. The demons were only limited to a certain area. Humans even had the leisure to enclose a piece of land and banish it outside of the world of order to study it and observe it. Then, the heavenly wasteland descended. Everything fell into the worst dream. After thousands, or even tens of thousands of years, it finally evolved into the current situation. The territory of the humans had shrunk to less than half of its original size. When Yin Nuoxing mentioned the end of the demonic wave, Yao Guang's heart throbbed slightly. She had also thought of such an outcome, but it was ultimately just a fantasy buried in the deepest part of her heart. She did not really think about what would happen if it really came true. Perhaps the world would return to the situation tens of thousands of years ago, but there was also a possibility that it would not happen. The demonic wave's impact on this world was too severe. Suddenly being thrown from one reality to another, perhaps. No, there would not be a worse situation. Even if the trajectory of life was changed all of a sudden, it would be a change towards a better and brighter future. She also had a little hope in her heart. She saw a little hope from Yin Nuoxing, the hope of ending the demonic wave. Perhaps it was just her unwillingness to admit defeat to this hopeless reality that was disturbing her. Crossing the heavenly wasteland wilderness, they found a slightly peaceful place in a barren land with only a faint mist drifting around. Young Master Shun turned back and looked at the interior of the heavenly wasteland wilderness. When the earthquake happened just now, everyone was focused on running, so they couldn't see what happened inside. However, he saw it clearly. He just didn't expect that Brother Yun and the others would make such a big commotion when they went in. He didn't know how they were. This is a place that was once occupied by the everlasting wilderness. Misty found a few places on the brownish-yellow land to test. Then he turned around and nodded to everyone. There is no problem. The place that was once occupied by the edge of the everlasting wilderness has completely changed its direction and retreated. The changes in the land are the best proof. But A place that was affected by the aura of the everlasting wilderness would become a barren land like this. A young man squatted down and pinched a handful of brownish-yellow sand with his hand. He rubbed it gently with his fingertips, and it completely turned into fine sand particles that drifted away with the wind. The land has no vitality at all. Even if it leaves the everlasting wilderness, it may not return to its original state for thousands of years. This energy contains a very powerful destructive force. It can cause irreversible damage to the nature of things and the nature of things. Young Master Shun walked over from the side. As he walked, he said, "It is not that it will not return to its original state for thousands of years. If there is no way to purify it, this land will always be like this." Since the rules were completely destroyed, there was no longer any vitality left. If they wanted to restore it, they would have to start from the rules. So serious. Everyone's expression turned serious. The young man scratched his head. No wonder I heard the people in charge of purification say that this land will be completely ruined if it is left there, but it is impossible for it to return to its original state. So, for those lands that have been contaminated by demons, there will be people who will help to restore if it is not serious. Basically, they will just give up if it is serious. Our human territory seems to be shrinking bit by bit like this. Compared to tens of thousands of years ago, our territory seems to have shrunk by 3 times. Another young man shrugged and said, "We can't tell you more about it now, but it will be clear when the time comes. Maybe we will have to fight the demons at the front lines." Young Master Shun was a little surprised. "So, you came to the Northern Temple for, if I die on this journey, I won't have to go to other places to make a fool of myself. If I come back alive, I'll have to report to the Holy Blade Army. I'll probably join the Purification Division. Compared to going to the battlefield and killing enemies, I think this is more suitable for me. If I force myself to go to other places, it'll be easy for me to harm others." Only then did young Master Shun understand why these young people took things so hard and came to these places. He did not expect that there was such a reason in the middle. It was as if the meaning of this trip had been forcibly changed, and they had interfered. Along the way, it was very thrilling, but nothing happened. This is what they call fate, young man. Hurry up and join that. Oh, Brother Yun is back. Young Master Shun muttered in his heart for a moment. Suddenly, he raised his head and waved in the direction of the heavenly wasteland. He threw 2 energy beams into the air as a sign. Swoosh! As soon as the energy that was thrown into the sky disappeared, a vortex appeared in the surrounding space. Then, a group of people walked out of the vortex. Everyone was stunned for a moment. Why did this guy have to bring people back every time he went out? Last time, he only brought a few people back. This time, he directly dragged a group of people back. Speaking of which, the demon wave was approaching. Why were there so many people going to the Northern Temple at this time? The young people were stunned. But these people did not look like they were going to the Northern Temple. Judging by their clothes, although they were tattered, they should be. "You are the Holy Blade Army?" As soon as Yao Guang and the others landed on the ground, they subconsciously turned around and saw a group of people staring at them. They were stunned for a moment and looked at them curiously. Are these people going to the Northern Temple? They are very brave to choose to go to the Northern Temple at such a time. Why are the Holy Blade Army here? Misty, you asked, puzzled. The demon wave is less than 100 days away. We were sent to the heavenly wasteland to investigate the situation. The blond young man waved his hand and looked at Yun Nuashing. Then, we were trapped by demons in the hinterland. In the end, we were saved by them. The young man with the big sword on his back said, "Our talismans were all destroyed. We had to leave with this senior. He has a way to protect us and leave the heavenly wasteland. But I am too lazy to make 2 trips, so I brought them to the Northern Temple first. We will talk about it when we get back." This was Yun Nuashing's words. Then, everyone let out a long "oh." One by one, they understood why the Holy Blade Army was here. The young man who said that he wanted to join the Purification Department came forward and whispered, "Well, is the heavenly wasteland going to be in a bad situation this time?" He had seen a few of them from afar. They were all very famous experts, but he didn't know much about them. According to the original situation, it is quite bad. Yao Guang and the others had a strange look on their faces. They did not know how to explain what they just saw. The blond young man coughed and said, "But this senior has already solved the problem." Everyone, question mark. Yin Nuoxing and the others walked to their positions and looked around. Then they turned around and said to everyone, "Do you want to rest? If not, let's go." Mr. Yu looked at everyone and asked. After knowing that everyone still had some strength left, he waved his hand and said, "Then, let's continue. Although we have left the heavenly wasteland, it is still safer to go further away. There is no guarantee that demons will not gather and crawl out from the edge of the heavenly wasteland. The demons that leave the heavenly wasteland will become more violent." Yao Guang and the others turned their heads and looked a little embarrassed. Those demons would not come out in a short period of time. The demonic wave in the heavenly wasteland would be delayed for a long time. There might not be another demonic wave for years. If something unexpected happened during the journey, it was just a small interlude. For now, Yin Nuoxing and the others were still on their way to the Northern Temple. According to Mr. Yu, once they crossed the heavenly wasteland, they would not be far from the Northern Temple. But the not far here referred to not far in sight. As for the Northern Temple, they would never be able to reach it. There's a kind of gap between us and the Northern Temple. Everyone has it. We can see it and leave a picture of it without any impact. But there is no way to get there. It is not the difficulty of the journey or the road, but there is no way for us to get close to it. As Mr. Yu spoke, he took out a map. There was a large black spot in the north of the map, which was probably the heavenly wasteland. And in the upper left corner of the heavenly wasteland, there was a piece of land that looked like a peninsula. It was surrounded by the sea on 3 sides and an island on the other side that was connected to the mainland. In terms of size, it was particularly large, about a quarter of the size of the mainland. The large peninsula was outlined with 3 or 4 layers of black lines. Yin Nuoxing pointed at the peninsula and asked, "Is the Northern Temple in this area?" "That's right." Mr. Yu nodded. From the moment we set foot in that area, the Northern Temple could be anywhere. By then, only we, the guides, can find its real location and then go to pay our respects. An idea suddenly popped up in Huey's mind. What would happen if I saw the Northern Shrine and kept walking towards it? Mr. Yu seemed to know that they would ask such a question. He laughed heartily and said, "We advance, and the Northern Temple retreats. We retreat, and the Northern Temple advances, maintaining a constant distance." That's right, every time I see the Northern Temple, it is always the same size, and the distance is constant. Then what if we keep chasing until we reach the edge of the peninsula? We pointed at the edge of the peninsula. Will the Northern Temple retreat into the sea? Mr. Yu was stunned, and so were the others. They did not expect him to ask such a question. Logically speaking, it should be. Yu tugged at his hair in confusion. He had never thought of this question before. Besides, no one had ever been so foolish as to chase after her to such an extent. I don't believe that no one has tried to chase after it. Some people have even chased it to the edge. It's just that you don't know, no one knows. Hui chuckled. There is no such thing as religion in this world. The reverence for the Northern Temple was only because no one knew what was going on. It was not because of faith, it was just reverence. The so-called pilgrimage was just a beautification. To put it bluntly, it was just like going shopping, just that the place was a little special. If they could really set foot on the Northern Temple, there would definitely be people who would choose to do so. Its image in everyone's mind was just mysterious and strange, not really sacred and untouchable. Coincidentally, they were the best at dealing with mysteries and strangeness. He patted Yin Nuoxing on the shoulder and whispered, "Feng, what do you think is the reason? The rules are limited. Some kind of territory, some kind of enchantment, or maybe the Northern Temple is just an illusion. It's not even in that place." Yin Nuoxing said a few things in one breath. Or maybe this is just a trace of the rules leaked from the concept layer. Only the guide and the people led by the guide can see it. In fact, there's no such thing as the Northern Temple or... We also helped to fill in the gaps. Young Master Shin listened with interest and discussed for a while, but in the end, they did not come to a conclusion. After all, they knew too much. As for the specific situation, they would have to go to the scene to find out. In the second half of the journey, because of the addition of Yao Guang and the others, the Holy Blade Army could take care of all the not-so-dangerous troublesome things on the way. Yin Nuoxing and the others were also happy to be idle. When they were escorting, they walked around and looked at the rules nearby. They looked at the situation around them and tried to let their power penetrate the rules around them. Besides, they were already in the second half of the journey, so there was basically no danger. The biggest danger had just passed not long ago. Yin Nuoxing thought that when they got close to the Northern Temple, there would be other changes in the surroundings, such as changes in the rules, changes in the energy, or touching something. However, until they plunged into the range of the peninsula, there were still no changes in these things, which made them wonder if they were wrong. He wanted to find Jing Yuanji and Dao Tian to verify the situation, but he could not get in touch with the consciousness maze. In the concept layer of the rules, he did not find any similar rules related to the consciousness maze. Perhaps it was because they were close to the sea. There was a large swamp that cut across the entrance of the peninsula. The swamp was full of trees that were several meters tall. At the bottom of the swamp, there were signs that it had been submerged by water, as if the waves had just receded not long ago. Taking a light breath, one could clearly smell the smell of rotting substances in the air and the salty smell of seawater. When these two things were mixed together, it smelled like some kind of expired meat. Even if they knew it was harmless, they could not stand it psychologically. After crossing a swamp, crossing a stretch of low-lying land that was submerged by seawater, and crossing a mountain range, the speed of Mr. Yu and the other two guides slowed down significantly. They held the black sticks in their hands and waved them at the sun and the moon from time to time. It seemed like they were using their unique method to determine the direction. On the other hand, Yin Nuoxing and the others were much more straightforward. Every time, they had young Master Shin secretly use the energy crystals to determine the direction. Along the way, they had not made any mistakes. Now, they finally showed up. At first, Mr. Ghost and the others could not figure out the direction, but the golden energy crystal kept pointing in the direction of the sea. In terms of direction, it was in the direction of the sea that was behind the infinite wilderness. Meanwhile, they had been following Mr. Ghost and the others on land, heading in the opposite direction. We sneaked out a few times in the name of scouting the route, and circled the empty place where there were only waves. However, he did not find anything. The sea was empty, and only the water was churning. On the other hand, Mr. Ghost and the other guide took longer and longer to determine the direction. Their ability seemed to have stopped working after they came to this huge peninsula. It was not clear whether it was inaccurate or it was completely useless. The ability that was given to them had lost its effect, and the direction they were pointing in was actually fake. They were just wandering around randomly, hoping to find something that they thought was the Northern Temple. How much food and water do we have left? Mr. Ghost looked at everyone. Everyone checked their own condition and, at the same time, looked at the others. Yao Guang helped to keep count. After a while, he said, "Divide all the food and water equally and leave the time needed for the return journey. We have about 4 days left." Everyone could not help but sigh. 4 days was the limit. If they could not find the Northern Temple, they would have to return. They had used the best container they could get their hands on, and that was all they could bring. It was inevitable that they would feel uncomfortable if they had not found the Northern Temple. If they brought more food, would they be able to stay a little longer? In fact, they were mentally prepared for this outcome before they set off. It was not every time they went to the Northern Temple. Even Mr. Ghost, a guide who died of old age on the way, did not get to see it every time. If they did not see it, they could only blame themselves for being unlucky. Yin Nuoxing and the rest gathered together and used the golden energy crystal to locate the Northern Temple again. They pinpointed 3 different places on the peninsula horizontally and vertically. Finally, they pinpointed in the ocean 300 miles north of the center of the heavenly wasteland. We had circled that place many times and still did not find anything. They also thought that if they did not see anything after some time, they would have to consider using some special means. Actually, I've already used other methods to look for it, Yin Nuashing said to Hui in a rest. Hui, young Master Shun, and the other two looked at him in horror and whispered, "What did you do?" Yin Nuashing counted with his fingers and said, "Rule oscillation, rule detection, soul scanning, scrolling through the bottom level of the rule concept layer." Hui and the rest breathed a sigh of relief when they heard that. It was not too bad, as it would not affect them too much. Then Yin Nuashing suddenly changed the topic and said, "Void stripping, void disintegration, void separation and the real-world space, rule locking, rule destruction, rule disturbance, order restriction, order enchantment, order blockade, and even used a large-scale energy shock to disturb the bottom level of the rule sea." The three of them were speechless. Suddenly, they felt that if this world was not in trouble, it was not as simple as being lucky. This was probably a world that was favored by the void. And then I got some information, but it will take some time to confirm it. Let's wait and see first. Yin Nuashing shrugged at last. Hui let out a long breath and glanced at Jing Yuanji, who was carried by him all the way. He did not know if it was an illusion, but he seemed to see a drop of sweat on the little girl's face. 3 days passed in a blink of an eye. Under the guidance of Mr. Ghost and the rest, they had almost traversed a third of the peninsula. They had been to the wilderness, the jungle, the mountains, and the lake. Some of the places were where Mr. Ghost and the rest had seen the Northern Temple, and some were new places they had set foot on this time. However, no matter where they went, they did not see the temple that they imagined. As the time came closer and closer, the disappointment on their faces was about to affect other parts of their bodies. On the night of the third day, they stopped at an open space halfway up the mountain. In fact, they had already walked to this position and were ready to return at any time. At this point, no one had any hope. The occasional sighs and discussions in the camp were mixed with sighs. Mr. Ghost was used to it. He had seen more of such situations in his life, but it could not be helped. Even they could not find the Northern Temple, and they did not expect others to be able to find it. They could only say that they were unlucky this time. If there was a next time, they would have to come again next time. No longer holding on to hope, they prepared to return. On the morning of the fourth day, they began to pack their things. Yao Guang noticed that Yin Nuashing was standing alone at the edge of the cliff, looking at the place where the sun rose. He did not move for a long time and could not help but walk over. "What are you looking at?" "The sun." Yin Nuashing smiled and let out a sigh of relief. And something reflected by the sun. Reflected by the sun is referring to Yao Guang turned his head in confusion and looked in the direction of Yin Nuashing's gaze. Suddenly, his eyes widened. Hidden in the sun, shown by the scattered rays of the sun and reflected between heaven and earth, that was... Chapter 1441. As the light of dawn descended, what appeared in front of him was a white palace. It was wide and long. Of course, he could not see its sides and could only look at it from the front. He could not tell whether it was wide or not. He could only tell that it was long and not very tall. As for the style, it was a style he had never seen before. It did not look like the style of the realm of the gods, the buildings of the twisted races, or the buildings of other worlds he had seen in the void. As for whether or not this had anything to do with Kanzaki, Seiji recalled the pitifully few buildings from the mythological era that he had seen before. For example, the few palaces that Hui had constructed in accordance with the rules of the mythological era, or the buildings in the original world that he remembered. No matter how much he thought about it, Seiji was unable to find any similarities between these buildings. Perhaps this building wasn't really related to those buildings. It was something new, something that he hadn't recognized yet. Yao Guang was stunned when she saw the shrine in the distance. It was just there with a blue sky and white clouds as the background. The clouds even passed through it. The shrine was transparent like a shadow. She didn't feel any sense of holiness from it. The shrine didn't give her any other feeling. It was as ethereal as an illusion. The reason she was stunned was because they had definitely been there 2 days ago. However, they didn't see anything when they went there. Why could they see it now? What was hidden in it? Yao Guang was stunned. God knows. Mr. Ghost and the others gradually noticed the situation here. They put down the weapons in their hands and walked over. Then, they were stunned by the scene in front of them. They quickly turned around and waved. No one said a word. Soon, everyone gathered at the cliff and looked at the distant temple. For a moment, they were a little emotional. As Yin Nuoxing and the others knew, the people who came here did not seem to be satisfied with their faith when they saw the Northern Temple. The so-called Northern Temple was just a conceptual goal in their hearts. At this time, the Northern Temple just happened to be here and was rumored to be a myth. It could also be something else, anything else. Even a small statue could replace the position of the Northern Temple. What they were really emotional about was that they had crossed mountains and rivers and crossed the heavenly wasteland to finally see this thing and achieve their goal. After all, there was really no religion in this world. Hui snuck around and whispered to young Master Shun. Young Master Shun took out the golden energy crystal and pointed it in the direction of the temple. After a moment, he nodded to Hui. Seeing this, Hui grinned and turned to the distant temple. He bent down, and then, bang, a sound accompanied by a sonic boom suddenly exploded. Everyone was blown away by the shockwave. They quickly stabilized themselves and saw a shadow rushing in the direction of the shrine. Yin Nuoxing looked at Hui and seemed to understand what he wanted to do. She shook her hair and wrapped it around Jing Yuanji. She then pointed her right hand at the space in front of her. Space, rule seal. What you see is permission in reality. A white halo of energy visible to the naked eye flashed under his feet, causing everyone to be stunned. That energy was not used on them, but only made them absent-minded for a moment. When they came back to their senses, they saw that the fluttering, cloud-like temple suddenly seemed to have a physical body and was fixed in space. Foam! I saw it. It's really a shadow. Come and take a look. A moment later, she received Huey's reply in her soul. Yin Nuoxing nodded and waved her hand. Just as she was about to bring everyone over, Mr. Ghost suddenly asked nervously, "What are you going to do?" "Go and take a look at that shrine," Yin Nuoxing said in a matter-of-fact tone. She tilted her head and saw the nervousness in his eyes. She could not help but ask, "You don't have any so-called beliefs, right? Or are you worried about what you do to that shrine?" No, that's not the reason." As expected, Mr. Ghost shook his head and looked a little embarrassed. "I'm just afraid that you will destroy that shrine." Yin Nuoxing and the rest were speechless. Sensing that they were a little stunned, Mr. Ghost explained, "You seem to have come with a different purpose from all of us from the beginning. This made me think that maybe you can come across that shrine, or something like that." "Well, maybe we can, maybe." Yin Nuoxing smiled faintly. She waved her hand and grabbed everyone and floated forward quickly. "Let's not talk about whether we can touch it or not. Now, let's take a look at the truth that has been hidden for 1,000 years. The truth." Yao Guang subconsciously grabbed the corner of his shirt. When they were in the abyss of demons, he also grabbed the corner of his shirt like this when he was feeling uneasy. Yin Nuoxing said concisely, "Let's go and take a look." Then, everyone fell silent. They flew forward with a nervous and slightly expectant attitude. Then, they were surprised to see that the pure white temple in their line of sight was really getting closer little by little. They could already clearly see the details of the temple, as well as some exquisite reliefs on the exterior walls. Hearing the uncontrollable excitement behind her, Yin Nuoxing said, "Don't get too excited. You can't touch this thing." She brought everyone to a few meters in front of the shrine that was just like a mist. Yin Nuoxing was about to look around when Hui came out of the shrine. His figure wandered around the shrine, but there were no changes to the shrine. There were no ripples like a reflection in the water. There were no waves. "Foam, I've dismantled this place, but I didn't find anything." Yin Nuoxing tilted her head. "What did you do?" "I've dismantled it and used all kinds of methods. But as you can see, it didn't affect this thing at all." As we spoke, he slapped the shrine in front of him. The forest below, less than 100 meters away, rumbled and kicked up dust. The clouds in front of them were scattered. These two marks told everyone how big the attack range was, but it didn't affect the shrine standing in front of them at all. Yao Guang and the others were now able to remain indifferent to their weird actions. It was tiring to be alarmed, so it was better to just watch them quietly. At the same time, they also took a look at the temple in front of them. Perhaps it was just a shadow. They had never been so close to the legendary Northern Temple before. Mr. Spectre took out a drawing board from the container. His hand that was holding the brush danced so fast that it left afterimages. The young man who had seen his drawing before couldn't help but lean forward. It was an enlarged drawing of the temple, probably to the scale of the temple in front of them. Compared to the pure white temple, without any decorations before, there were many exquisite reliefs on it, and the layout was also three-dimensional. Yin Nuoxing came to young Master Shen's side. "You keep an eye on these people. I'll go in and take a look. I'm worried that these worlds will affect them if they touch it." "Oh, don't worry. Go in. We'll keep watch outside." Young Master Shen smiled gently. Hearing this, Yao Guang suddenly moved to Yin Nuoxing's side. "Well, I want to see it too, Yin Nuoxing. Then I'll use you as an experiment. I can save one person in time, but I can't save a group of people in time." As he spoke, he spread his hands. He had to find a reason to bring people in. Otherwise, what he said before would seem a little stupid. Hui led the way in front, but there was nothing to do. He just turned around and led the way into the phantom in front of them. Yin Nuoxing also walked into the shrine with Yao Guang. When he left, he used his own energy to protect the ladder. He was worried that there might be something here that could only be triggered by people from this world. However, his worries seemed to be a little unnecessary. They had been in here for a few minutes, and the air was so quiet that nothing happened. But he dared not let his guard down. The pure white shrine was like a shadow. The internal structure could not be seen. From the outside, it looked very real. There were doors and stairs. However, when they went through the door, what they saw was not the layout of another space behind the door. All they saw was white. It was as if when they walked into this phantom, their vision would be stained with white. Other than that, there was no other color. However, Yao Guang could still see Yin Nuoxing and the others clearly. They were following him closely and looking around curiously. "Is this what the Northern Shrine looks like?" Yao Guang could not help but move closer to Yin Nuoxing. He whispered, "Why is there no physical body? Is it really just a shadow? The legendary place that has been passed down for countless years is actually a lie?" Yin Nuoxing shook her head. "Of course not. There's some, well, things that you can't understand. But I can tell you with certainty that the Real Northern Shrine should exist in this world. It's just that what you see in front of you you can treat it as a shadow." Yao Guang replied with an "oh." He picked the words that he could understand in the middle and chose to understand them. Hui heard this and asked, "You saw some clues?" "Ah, probably." Yin Nuoxing nodded. "The situation is not as complicated as I thought at first. It's probably a certain kind of rule mapping. Its body is real, and the rule it contains is very powerful. For example, a certain kind of powerful rule creation. When it can't control its own rule, power, and rule, this power is captured by the concept level of the rule. However, due to some reasons, the captured rule power did not settle down to the bottom level of the rule, nor did it become a trace of rule imprint there. Instead, it floats in that level like a wandering soul. Then, when there are some gaps in the real world that connect to the concept level of the rule, it will be mapped out from there." Hui scratched his chin and said, "There are a lot of restrictions. First of all, the thing itself is not under its own control. Second, its power needs a long time to dissipate before it can be captured by the conceptual layer of rules. Third, only when the conceptual layer of rules is not peaceful and not stable will it occasionally crack open in the space of the real world. According to the legends of this world, it seems that there are 3 or 4 periods where the world would split apart in a year of 432 days, but it is also unstable. Then, the conceptual layer of this world's rules is rather fragile and a little violent." Hui suddenly clapped his hands. "It's a little like what we thought when we came in." Yin Nuoxing was stunned. After thinking for a while, he also let out a long "oh." The demonic shadow was sealed, and his own situation was not good. This world had been sealed back and forth 3 times, and the rules must have been affected. The concept layer of the rules was very unstable because of the power of the seal and the demonic shadow himself. So it made sense. There was an 80% chance that the demon shadow was inside the temple. Well, now we need to find something to confirm our guess. Yin Nuashing floated left and right, sensing the surroundings from time to time. The location was very close. Found it. Hui curiously came over. What are you looking for? Yin Nuashing waved her hand and floated over with Yao Guang. Hui followed. The three of them floated to a position at the back of the temple. In the space in front of them, something like a crack suddenly appeared. The crack was very thin, only half the width of a palm. It was so small that it was almost invisible, and its body was covered by the pure white temple. The crack in the concept layer of rules. We were right. Hui understood when he saw the crack. That. Yao Guang raised his hand weakly. When he saw the two looking at him, he shrunk his neck and whispered, I think I understand a little. Why is the northern temple? Well, it can't be touched by others. That crack is where it is, isn't it? Although the way the two of them spoke sounded strange, she filtered out the information she didn't understand and only listened to the parts she understood. Yin Nuashing and Hui looked at each other and felt a little surprised. This little girl who had never come into contact with the power of rules actually understood it at once. 1/5. All right, that part could be understood without needing to know anything about rules and such. It's not that simple. You saw this crack because you were beside us. Yin Nuashing pointed down. Yao Guang thought for a moment and suddenly understood. They were now more than 10 meters above the ground. The crack was so thin and had no special features. It probably could not be seen from the ground. Also, this shadow will change because of the phenomenon of observation. Yin Nuashing looked up and thought for a moment. He looked at her and said, for example, I'm standing in front of you because you see me in front of you. You even come into contact with me, but there's someone standing far away looking at me. I'm just a little bit smaller. At this time, your observation angle is synchronized with that person's point of view. Yao Guang said in a daze, Then I see you become very far away? Then in fact, it's still in the same place. It's just that the phenomenon you observe has changed. Yin Nuashing smiled at the smart girl. Yao Guang was deep in thought. Mei Mao wandered around a few times. So what we see now, in the northern temple that appeared in history, is actually just a shadow that came out of this crack. Its real body has always been in the same place and has never changed? Smart girl. Yin Nuashing smiled and nodded in agreement. Then where is the northern temple? Yao Guang asked nervously. Yin Nuashing and Hui turned to look at the sea that they had been looking at many times. Now it seemed that they should go there and have a look. Yao Guang followed their gaze and tilted her head. She could not see anything. 5 minutes later, Yin Nuashing and the other two came out of the temple. Everyone turned to look at them. Young Master Shin went up to them and asked, How is it? It's just as I predicted. At most, there are some differences in the form. Hui shrugged and then turned to Mr. Yu and the others. Are you done? Those who want to draw, those who want to record, just let me know when you're done. We still have a long way to go. Looks like it's nothing. Wait, you said we still have to go. Misty was dumbfounded. He had no idea what these people were planning. But where are we going? To see the real body of the temple. I'm too lazy to go back and forth. Yin Nuashing yawned and said lazily, If you don't want to go, we will send you to the place that leaves the heavenly wasteland. After what happened, everyone thought that the northern temple was just a shadow. When they heard what young Master Shin said, they were stunned again. You know the real location of the northern temple? If I'm not mistaken, it should be. Everyone struggled for a long time and looked at each other many times. After 2 minutes, when Yin Nuashing could not help but urge them, they finally braced themselves and agreed. In their hearts, they were so curious about the mysterious temple that it was as if a cat was scratching them. After confirming that they did not have to make 2 trips, young Master Shun took out the golden energy crystal and checked the direction one last time. He nodded at Yin Nuashing and the others, and the group rushed toward the sea. On the vast sea, the land was very far away, beyond Yao Guang and the others' sight. Yin Nuashing and the others could still see the location of the land, but it was very small. They had no idea how far away they were from the land. In the direction of the land, which should be the heavenly wasteland, they could vaguely see some grayish white. There were not many clouds in the sky. The early morning sun shone on the surface of the sea, reflecting the constantly churning waves. There was no reflection. He cast his attention to the bottom of the sea. Intuition told him that there was something wrong with the sea. It was a little too quiet. 100 meters below the sea was the limit of his senses, but there was nothing in the sea. He had been paying attention to this situation for a few days. Every time he was on the sea, he couldn't help but want to look down, but he couldn't see anything. However, there were more than one or two strange places in this world, so he treated this as a feature of this world. He only paid attention to it for a while and then looked away. The guidance ends here. Young Master Shen suddenly stopped. The golden energy crystal in his hand dimmed and lost its light. There's nothing. It's the same as the situation a few days ago. I can't see anything. Hui walked around and said to Yin Nuoxing, "Foam, it's up to you. We can't solve this situation." Yin Nuoxing nodded seriously. "Well, I don't feel anything. Everyone..." "Huh?" Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly and landed on the sea. As his feet touched the waves, the sea within a radius of thousands of feet turned into a huge ice cube. Even the waves maintained their original rolling motion. Hui led everyone to stand on the ice. Then he went over quickly. "You really don't feel anything?" Yin Nuoxing frowned, his face full of confusion. Although he wanted to tell him that this was a joke. But he really didn't feel anything, just like the previous few times when his soul spread here, he didn't feel anything. Looking at his troubled expression, Hui knew that he was not joking. Suddenly, he felt troubled. "Why don't you try and see if you can get the thing out of here? There's definitely something hidden here." "How do you want to try?" Yin Nuoxing glanced at him. "Like blowing it up or something." Yin Nuoxing let out a long sigh and did not want to talk to him anymore. Just blow it up when you're in trouble? Did this guy not consider the possibility of blowing up all the things he was hiding? However, Huey's actions were still somewhat useful. As Yin Nuoxing's thoughts spun, he had already thought of several methods that were different from the normal search. Perhaps they could be used to retrieve that thing. He freed his right hand and pretended that his palm was touching something. He silently chanted the Kanzaki language in his mind, then tried using various types of energy. In the end, he even managed to retrieve origin energy. He even flicked a drop of blood out from his finger. The drop of blood flew out for a few dozen meters before it landed on the ice and dissipated into energy. "What are you doing?" The sudden voice in his ear interrupted his actions. Yin Nuoxing turned his head and saw that Yao Guang was looking at him, dumbfounded. Hui, young Master Shun, and the others were also stunned by the commotion just now. Ahem, I'm trying to figure out how to open this place." Yin Nuoxing scratched his head and laughed dryly. He casually made an origin energy and threw it out, trying to ease the awkwardness. Bang! The dark red energy suddenly hit the space 10 meters away. The energy shock wave that was visible to the naked eye swept across the whole world. The ice trembled violently, and the space suddenly rippled violently. Huh? Yin Nuoxing was stunned. He couldn't use the origin energy to test it. He had to give it a slap. A moment later, the point where the space rippled suddenly opened. It was as if the energy barrier had suddenly opened and retreated in all directions. Then, the huge thing hidden behind the barrier slowly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was a pure white temple. The walls were carved with exquisite reliefs, but it was different from the shadow they saw just now. This time, everyone felt a majestic aura from the temple. The one they saw just now was a shadow, but the one in front of them was the real thing. "You guys wait here for a while," Yin Nuoxing squeaked. He jumped over the temple before it fully appeared in the world. He stood in front of the door and raised his head. Hui also followed him lightly and dragged Yao Guang over. The little girl was not afraid of anything. Didn't she see that Mr. Yu and the others looked so serious? She still came over energetically. Then, she moved firmly to Yin Nuoxing's side. Ignoring Huey's strange gaze that was enough to make him beat him up, Yin Nuoxing stretched out his hand and touched the door lightly. "It's real, it really exists. There's a very dangerous energy flowing inside." This place may be the nest of that thing. How can it not be dangerous? Hui said helplessly. He reached out his hands and pushed the door, but it didn't budge. It seemed to be locked. Chapter 1442. It was a pure white temple, and the surrounding walls were engraved with some inexplicable reliefs. They looked like animals, but they had no heads or faces at all. If they were scenery, it would be even more difficult for them. These strange reliefs that looked like the fragments of something exploded did not look like scenery. Yin Nuoxing looked more like the master of the temple, a guy who had nothing better to do one day and started to do art on the walls of his temple. He did not know what to do, so he could only combine the thoughts in his mind during the day with the unknown things in his subconscious to create the reliefs in front of him. Yes, he really felt that way. The relief sculptures in front of him were not that good looking. If one were to say that they had a special meaning like totems, that was probably because they were a few primordial realms away from the worldview. He really couldn't see any meaning in them. Excluding the first 40 eras of the great primordial realm and the last 100 eras, he had never seen anything like this. He didn't know what it was. These reliefs are a bit like the reliefs on some temples in the era when the demonic tide began 30,000 years ago. Yao Guang followed his gaze and also looked at the wall in front of them. Her jade-like hand gently stroked the cold wall as she said softly, "Oh." Yin Nuoxing recovered from his thoughts and looked at her. "Is there any special meaning in them?" Yao Guang frowned and thought for a while. Her eyes showed that she was thinking. It seems a little like a festival, a sacrifice, something. I can't remember it clearly. The records of the ancient era are not very clear. Although I have seen it, I can't remember the obscure knowledge. Yao Guang shook her head. Yin Nuoxing heard her and made a meaningless sound. He looked up at the wall in front of him. It had something to do with this world tens of thousands of years ago. Could it be that this world was created by that demonic shadow? A guy who was full of dark energy and stood at a higher position on the non-order ladder than he was on the order ladder created such a world? He felt that there was something very wrong with this situation, but there was no need for him to feel that. The current situation of the Great Mana Tide was a sign that something was wrong. The people of this world had lived well for tens of thousands of years. If one day a mass of black things suddenly descended from the sky and wreaked havoc everywhere, the people of this world would never surrender. They would rise up and fight. After tens of thousands of years of war, the territory of order in this world was reduced to less than half. Less than half. This was interesting. He guessed, was it fattening it first and then slaughtering it? Or was it creating it first and then slowly destroying it? It was creating the world and then destroying it. Those things. Clang, clang. The sudden sound made Yin Nuoxing and Yao Guang turn their heads. Hui was there, trying his best to break the 10-foot-tall door. After a long time, there was no movement. The ladder was a little impatient and was now kicking the door. Yin Nuoxing estimated that the strength of his 2 kicks could send a planet from the orbit of the sun to the sun, the kind that would arrive in 3 minutes. However, when it arrived, it would probably be a pile of debris. I can't find a way to open the door. Seeing the 2 of them looking at him, Hui scratched his head awkwardly. I thought I could break in or something. There is a very powerful law seal and energy seal engraved on the door. I can't believe you can come up with such a way to break in. Yin Nuoxing smacked her lips and reached out to pat the door. Save your strength. The strength of the seal on the door is still very strong. Maybe it just jumped out that day to scare people. It's still lying in there now. But that energy is not the energy of distortion. Hui scratched his head in puzzlement. Yin Nuoxing was stunned. Yes, the energy seal on the door is not the seal of the energy of distortion. It is the dark energy. Then what does this mean? That demonic shadow sealed itself in the temple? The group of high-tier heavenly gods had already found it and fought with it. But it knew that there was another group of more dangerous guys looking for it. So it locked the door? It sounded quite reasonable. However, judging from the energy on the door, with this energy, it should be able to kill that group of high-tier heavenly gods of the distorted race without any effort. I don't understand. Yin Nuoxing scratched her head in distress. Oh, Then let's not talk about that first. Anyway, let's open the door first. Is your origin energy useful? Hui patted him on the shoulder. Let me try. Yin Nuoxing walked forward and placed her right hand lightly on the door. Just as she was about to use her origin energy, she suddenly retracted her hand and looked at her palm hesitantly. Then, several bursts of dark red energy appeared together and gathered in her palm. She glanced at it and slapped the door in front of her. PFFF, a light palm. After a long time, there was no sound at all. Yin Nuoxing's face was full of black lines. The sound of the air exploding from the palm just now sounded like a low sneer at the moment, which made Hui and Yao Guang unable to restrain their laughter. There's no reaction. The energy has directly retracted. They don't want to work. Yin Nuoxing's cheeks twitched. This origin energy was infected with her laziness. No, why do they suddenly want to go on strike? Weren't they quite happy when they were tormenting me? Why are they pretending to be dead now? Yin Nuoxing gritted her teeth and urged her energy again. She slapped the door again. It did not move at all. There was no sound at all. Not even the slightest bit of energy impact came out. Hui held back his laughter and shook his arm a few times. Looking at the origin imprints engraved on his arm, he pondered for a moment. It's still not very coordinated. Feng, since your energy began to be infected with the origin energy, your control and coordination of energy has decreased a lot. Furthermore, origin energy is difficult to control. In this era, you may be the only one who can control origin energy. But even so, to use several origin energy at once, you said they are in conflict? Hui shook his head. It's not coordinated. To put simply, it might not be a problem usually. But now, they have encountered a non-orderly energy. Moreover, it's very high on the ladder. So, they're not willing to cooperate. The origin energy is emitting some disharmony. It's a bit like emotions, resentment, causing them to be unable to work together. I didn't see anything happen when we were in the infinite planes. Yin Nuoxing scratched her head in confusion. When I came out of the demonic abyss, they even exploded. Attacking on their own is different from mobilizing your own energy. Hui shook his head and waved his hand. In short, under such circumstances, you may not be able to coordinate the problems between several origin energies. So, using one energy is enough? That's about it. Yin Nuoxing responded vaguely. Origin energy, how troublesome. He did not know why those origin energy essences left these origin imprints after using his body. Moreover, the origin energy stored in these imprints was not a one-time use. It could be regenerated and would recover automatically. It was equivalent to him carrying more than 100 energy carriers, and the capacity of the carriers was larger than his body, the size of a primordial realm. Fortunately, the origin imprints were carriers inscribed with the laws of the primordial god and were only attached to his body. Otherwise, if this energy used his body as a carrier, he could not imagine what would happen. Shaking his head to get rid of those distracting thoughts, Yin Nuoxing tied Jing Yuanji's hair and got into a horse stance. He stretched out his right hand, and dark red energy madly gathered. Then, with a roar, he blasted out his palm. Boom! A huge shock wave splashed out from the entire temple and the ice below, almost turning the world upside down. Many black runes and demonic patterns suddenly appeared on the white door in front of them. The surging dark energy caused the sky to darken, as if the infinite planes had descended here. Oh, this aura is even scarier than the aura of the demonic abyss. Yao Guang took a step back, her pretty face full of fear. Yin Nuoxing was stunned for a moment. This level of dark energy was an aura that was close to the primordial realm. This girl was standing here, and the dark energy streaked past her, but she did not react at all. Was she just shocked? There was indeed something wrong with this world. At least, there was something wrong with the people who lived here. Perhaps it was because this world was created by the demonic shadow. Perhaps it was because this world was created using its energy as a template, just like the alternative race created by the distorted race that was half constructed using the distorted race's energy. Close to this source of the world, The life that was born from the source of the world has a great degree of immunity to that kind of energy. Yin Nuoxing muttered in his heart and shook his head. It was really complicated and troublesome. He raised his hand, continued to mobilize energy, and slammed his palm on the door again. For half an hour, the world reverberated with violent energy impacts. Every time there was a loud explosion, the light between heaven and earth would quickly dim and then instantly return to normal. It was as if there were two forces of energy fighting for control of the sky, causing the sky to be restless. We also helped to stabilize the rules of this area. Just the movements of the two people who did not meet each other had almost knocked this place into the void. If the rules were shaved a few more times, there would probably be chaos. Really, what should we do when we meet each other later? This world is going to collapse. Hui threw out a golden energy to continue to stabilize this space. He could not help but sigh. Yin Nuoxing slammed the door until his palm hurt. He felt like a resentful woman who was chased out of the house. Perhaps it would be better if he said a few words now. For example, shouting, "Come out," or something like that. Why not kick it with his feet? Speaking of which, why did he choose to open the door in such a violent way anyway? He had just slammed the door like that. If he turned around and kicked it now, it would feel wrong. Yin Nuoxing took a deep breath and slammed his palm again. The magic patterns on the door looked fine, but the energy response had dropped by a lot. Perhaps it would be washed clean in a while. He could not count how many times he had slammed the door. Bang! Just as he was grumbling in his heart, he suddenly struck out with a palm full of resentment. The door in front of him opened with a loud bang. To be precise, the two doors flew out. Then a loud sound of something hitting something came from the depths of the temple, and it even carried an echo. Hiss! Okay, the door is open. Yin Nuoxing shook his hand and looked at the situation in front of him. Suddenly, he was stunned. He quickly grabbed Yao Guang and retreated. Huey's reaction was a second slower, but he noticed that something was wrong in time and jumped out. I also released some things while I was at it. Dense black energy surged out of the temple door like a cloud. The dark energy rushed into the sky, and the sky suddenly darkened. Everyone looked at this scene in horror. They subconsciously thought of the scene in the wilderness of Infinite Wasteland and then associated it with the Northern Temple. An indescribable feeling emerged from the bottom of their hearts. Why is there such a strong demonic aura in the Northern Temple? The blonde youth did not hide anything and shouted directly. The storm that was blowing in his face made him unable to stand on the ice. Yao Guang and Mei Mao flashed. She suddenly looked at Yin Nuoxing and the rest. Did you know something from the beginning? Well, I don't know. It's more like a feeling. Yin Nuoxing shrugged and lightly stomped his feet to let the ice spread and wrap around everyone's waist to prevent anyone from being blown into the sea by the storm. This northern temple is very likely the source of the monsters that appeared in this world. Yao Guang's pupils shrank slightly. She suddenly thought of the sentence that he said before. To completely eliminate the demonic creatures in this world. Could it be that they had to start from this temple? There were also many smart people present. Combining Yin Nuoxing's words and the current situation, they could also make a lot of judgments. Their faces suddenly changed a little. When the dark storm in the door blew away, the sky was already wrapped in clouds formed by dark energy. The energy was much stronger than the energy in the hinterland of the heavenly wasteland, which made everyone alert at once. But what puzzled them was that according to the degree of condensation of this energy, the demonic creatures should have appeared long ago. Why was this place still so calm until now? It was just that the sky had darkened. This aura, young Master Shin looked strange after the gate of the temple opened. He stared at the space inside the gate of the temple, repeating the action of taking deep breaths and exhaling. His state of mind seemed to be unable to calm down. Both Yin Nuoxing and Hui noticed his abnormality. They looked at each other and did not say anything for the time being. They just watched quietly and waited for a little while. After about 5 minutes, there was no more dark energy gushing out from the temple. It seemed to have calmed down. Yin Nuoxing confirmed the surrounding situation, nodded, and walked out with Hui. Brother Yin, wait a minute, I want to go in too. Young master, Shun hurriedly shouted and looked back at the woman in green. You take them to a safe place to hide. Something very dangerous may happen next. We have no time to take care of them. What? Have you found out why you came here? Yin Nuashing teased. Young master Shun smiled bitterly and shook his head. I don't know if that's the intention. Brother Yin, you know it too. I have forgotten why I came to the graveyard of gods and demons, but I probably know something. Yin Nuashing and Hui looked at each other and said in their souls, okay, the plot is about to be triggered. At this moment, there was nothing to hesitate or discuss. The three of them looked at each other and rushed straight into the gate of the temple. When they passed through the gate, the four figures suddenly flashed and disappeared. Their senses judged that they had just experienced a spatial transmission. Their vision blurred for 2 or 3 seconds. When they opened their eyes again, they saw a pure white corridor. They rushed out from the air and landed on the ground. They looked at the corridor that was obviously not the right size. We reached out and measured. According to the proportion of the palace we built, unless some people are very exaggerated, they won't build a corridor with such an exaggerated size. And this is too spacious. It's so spacious that it doesn't seem to be for something the size of a human to pass through. Yin Nuashing pointed at the gap of more than 1,000 meters on the left and right sides of the corridor. This width is enough for an army to pass through. Some large objects need a corridor of this width, such as... Young Master Shun pondered for a moment. Such as the demon we saw. Isn't that guy bigger? Hui was stunned for a moment. The size of an energy life form is like a fart. Who knows, it might even be this size under normal circumstances. Villains also have their own private lives. We can't possibly let it squat on the throne all day long like it's constipated and think about who am I, what should I destroy, and what should I do. Isn't that thing also very active in breaking the seal? Otherwise, this wouldn't even happen. Yin Nuashing rolled her eyes at him. The three of them. Somehow, they felt that there was something in this strange metaphor that was worth thinking about. The footsteps of the four people echoed in the spacious corridor. We kept walking close to the wall, leaning on the wall and looking at something. There was a spacious platform every 35 meters in the corridor. The platform extended into the wall on both sides. The recessed area was like the balcony in a castle. Outside the balcony was a chaotic space. Some kind of unstable energy flowed in the space outside. Hui poked his head out of the balcony and looked around. He could see that there were many balconies like this in the past. He could also roughly see the appearance of the temple after being teleported here. It stood in a chaotic space. The unstable energy outside was mixed with a huge amount of space power, which was the evidence that the space had not yet stabilized. This conceptually infinite space was full of this kind of energy. The temple was like an isolated island in this sea of energy. The chaotic energy was isolated hundreds of meters away from this isolated island. So they could see this very uniform oil painting like the effect of a bucket of purple, red, and black paint directly poured on a piece of white cloth. Hui reached out and forcibly grabbed a mass of chaotic energy in his hand. He ran to Yin Nuashing's side and was stunned before he spoke. Cursed and petrified, Yin Nuashing glanced at him and saw him pointing behind him with his mouth agape. Yin Nuashing was also stunned and turned her head. Then, she was so scared that she turned into a grayish-white statue. A girl with light white hair was looking at the temple curiously. Her hand was still holding the corner of his clothes. She stopped when she saw him staring at her in horror. She was shocked. What's wrong? Yin Nuashing closed her jaw. No, why are you here? I followed you in, I know you followed me in. What I mean is, why didn't you leave with them? Yao Guang looked down at his palm and laughed dryly. I was scared by the movement of the northern temple and forgot to let go. When I realized it, I was accidentally pulled in by you. Yin Nuashing and the other two were speechless. Yao Guang shrunk his neck and blinked his beautiful eyes pitifully. Then I'll go out. We've been gone for half an hour. If we go out now, we'll have to go through a lot of trouble. Yin Nuashing shook her head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Forget it. It's good that you're here. Maybe we'll need you. After all, He was a life form in this world. It was hard to guarantee that this temple would not have some special settings. It's okay, it's okay. Hui laughed heartlessly. He patted Yin Nuoxing's shoulder. If anything happens, you go up and beat them up. I'll protect this girl for you. Your excuse really makes me want to beat you up. Yin Nuoxing glanced at him and kicked him to the front. If you're thick-skinned, go scout ahead. Chapter 1443. At the end of the pure white corridor was a huge doorframe. There was a huge dent in the middle of the left and right doorframes. 2 doors had been opened and retracted to the sides. There was a flickering energy rune at the place where the 2 doors merged. It looked like some kind of seal. Since the door was not closed, the rune had lost its seal. Beyond the huge rune, there was a foggy hall. A huge hall. The fog in the hall was only made up of some residual black energy. The rest of the fog was like dew floating in the air at night and in the morning. A faint light was projected from the center of the hall. The foggy fog captured the light's trajectory, like a piece of golden ribbon dancing in the air. In front of them was a long corridor as wide as the door. When they turned the corner, they recognized that it was a long corridor suspended in the air. The material was the same as the material of the temple, between some kind of metal and rock. Half of it was crystallized by pure energy. In the middle of the long corridor was a piece of transparent energy crystal. Looking down along the transparent crystal, there was a thick layer of black energy fog at the bottom of the hall. The light in the center of the hall slightly illuminated the darkness at the bottom of the hall. There were some huge objects with solid bodies that affected the flow of the fog. The fog vaguely outlined the general appearance of those objects. Hui was curious. He threw a ball of energy light down. The sacred golden light bloomed and dispelled the darkness. The huge objects hidden in the black fog suddenly appeared in everyone's sight. Yin Nuoxing and young Master Shun were stunned for a moment. They could still accept it. Yao Guang was so scared that he put his hand on the sword at his waist. It was a group of gigantic demons. They were not beasts or ribs that were corrupted by dark energy, or skeletons, but pure energy bodies that were condensed from dark energy. They could not see the actual bodies before, but they could see the gigantic bodies here. Each statue was 100 meters tall. Yes, they were just statues of demons. Even so, when they were suddenly illuminated by the light, everyone was startled. Yao Guang had already entered combat mode. The lower floor of the hall was filled with these 100-meter-tall monster statues. We could not help but exclaim, "Are these the true faces of the monsters hidden in the black energy fog? They look like some deep-sea beasts, some unknown creatures. Some look like some strange monsters and beasts recorded in ancient records. Some of them are not real." Yao Guang carefully moved closer to Yin Nuoxing and kept looking at the monsters. It was also the first time she saw the true faces of those energy-type monsters. They look like some ancient, legendary creatures? Yin Nuoxing suddenly asked. "Ah, yes, they do. I know some of them. They look like those things in my memory." Yao Guang pointed at a monster that only had one head, many arms, and a face full of eyes. 1,000 hands and 1,000 eyes. As the name suggests, it is said to be able to wield any weapon, and its eyes can release terrible curses. Although there were not really 1,000 of them, it was just a description. However, that monster really had many eyes and many human hands. Yao Guang did not know if it thought that because it was wrapped in a layer of black powder, Yao Guang could not recognize it. Yao Guang blinked her beautiful eyes and suddenly exclaimed, "Ah, I remember something. In a battle many years ago, my team and I encountered a monster in a forest. That commander monster was a monster that could use countless weapons and powers. Now, it seems that it was probably 1,000 hands and 1,000 eyes. But this is something that only exists in myths described by ancient people. In fact, such a thing doesn't exist because none of the ancient books mention the existence of such a thing. Everyone only thought that these strange things that were passed down from generation to generation were things that drunkards saw wrongly in their eyes." "Myths, huh?" Yin Nuoxing grinned and patted Yao Guang's head. "Myths are not necessarily false. It is possible that such a thing existed in the past, but its true form was not completely like this. When a mistake is made, when it is something that has been unintentionally passed down for hundreds of thousands of years, and when countless people fill in the holes for it, do you think this thing is real or fake? Yao Guang tilted her head in a daze. What do you mean by fill in the holes? Let me put it another way. For example, that thing is really a fake, a fantasy existence. In order to make people believe that it really exists, many people deliberately put a lot of things in it, such as a story, a so-called eyewitness, or something. That's what it means. Yao Guang nodded in realization. Fill in the holes, and then what? But that thing doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. Yin Nuoxing smiled and nodded. Things that don't exist won't exist. However, what if you make that thing exist? For example, someone really has the ability to create such a thing. It's just that the creator of that thing obtained a trace of inspiration from those myths. How is that possible? Creating something that doesn't exist. Yao Guang covered her mouth and chuckled, not minding it at all. Then, she saw Yin Nuoxing pointing at himself with a faint smile. Yao Guang was stunned. You're joking with me, right? We do have the ability to do such a thing, but we didn't do it. We don't have the ability to do it. I'm just telling you that such a power does exist in this world. Yin Nuoxing smiled. Yao Guang felt the hair on her back stand. She couldn't help but shudder. They had such an ability, but they didn't create it. And this statue was placed here. Could it be that the gods of the Northern Temple created the monsters? Yao Guang said. She had goosebumps all over her body. She quickly rubbed her hands. It's not impossible. You saw it when you were at the door. The energy pouring out from the Northern Divine Palace is the energy from the heavenly wasteland. You've been fighting monsters for so many years, so you should be very clear about it. Yin Nuoxing sighed and said helplessly. The Northern Temple did not have a congregation of faith. Perhaps those who were in the mountaineering or hiking party would have a little faith, but they did not believe in the things that existed there. He could also see that the words Northern Temple did have some influence on the people of this world. Perhaps it was something that made them fantasize about something. Until today, he exposed the truth that was 90% true and tore this illusory fantasy to shreds. The extent of it was probably no less than discovering that one's idol also had a bad habit, and there were also things that were different from one's beautiful imagination. For example, he and Huey's strange biographies, hundreds of goddesses and saintesses, hundreds of sons of gods and sons of gods. Ugh! Seeing that Yao Guang was stunned for a moment, Yin Nuoxing patted her hair. Sorry for letting you see the hidden side of this world. The walls at both ends of the suspended corridor were not very high, only a little taller than half his height. Looking at the entire corridor, it surrounded the circular area in the middle of the hall in a large circle with a diameter of 100 meters. The circle was connected to 4 corridors, one of which was the one they came from. 2 of the other 3 corridors only had a door frame at the end, and there was no space behind it. That was to say, the 2 corridors only had a door frame. After walking through the corridors, they would enter the space of chaotic energy outside. Then, there was only one way left to go. Oh, it's this pattern again. I saw it on the door just now. After going around the big circle and walking to another passage, Hui lowered his head and looked at a 10-meter-wide circle on the ground. It was an exquisite pattern, like the reliefs on the walls of the temple, protruding from the ground. There was a weak energy flowing on the pattern. Hui was very concerned about this pattern, but he couldn't understand what it meant. Young Master Shin squatted down and reached out to touch the edge of the reliefs in the circle. His eyes flickered slightly. I think I know this, but I need some time to confirm it. Yao Guang looked around. Suddenly, he pulled Yin Nuoxing's arm and pointed upward. Yin Nuoxing looked up and was stunned for a moment. She tilted her head awkwardly. There were 2 huge, barely rectangular objects embedded in the wall in front of them. Huge cracks bloomed on the wall, and it looked like it would collapse at any time. Those were the 2 doors of the temple that he had just slammed into. They walked down a gentle slope to the end of the corridor and walked into another spacious hall. It was a different place from the countless monster statues behind them. This place was a bit strange. In the four corners of the hall, in the center position, there were 5 black energy clusters suspended about 20 meters above the ground. The center of the black energy clusters was very bright, and the energy cluster in the center was higher and bigger than the ground. There were some palm-sized magic circles in the space around the energy clusters, but they were not the magic circles that Yin Nuoxing knew. They were rotating around the energy clusters, but they were not the kind of magic circles that Yin Nuoxing knew. They were emitting a weak energy response, and by the looks of it, they seemed to be doing something. This seems to be an energy hall. We walked closer and looked at the huge energy clusters. He pointed at the palm-sized things that seemed to be magic circles. But these things have suppressed most of the energy leakage. There's a little seal on the edge of the energy clusters. So we think that these energy clusters don't have much energy, but in fact, Yin Nuoxing had already started to analyze when he opened his mouth. Now she was one step ahead of him and said, "In fact, if any of these 4 energy clusters exploded, this world would be destroyed. It is indeed an energy hall. The energy flows into the hall below, according to this." Yin Nuoxing looked back at the passage in the direction they came from. Don't these 2 halls together look like a barracks that is constantly producing soldiers? As soon as this sentence came out, the 3 of them fell silent. Yao Guang's face was even paler. The source of the chaos in this world, the source of the disaster in this world, was actually the well-known northern temple that was worshipped as the residence of the gods. But where is the exit? Young Master Shun scratched his head. There had to be an exit for the soldiers to run out. Didn't they just throw them directly into the heavenly wasteland and the other 2 places? Young Master Shin said, "Oh, through energy transmission, there is a way, and it should be close to the truth." Extending out of the energy hall was a staircase that led to the 2nd floor. Every step of this staircase was ridiculously high as a wall. The first step was about 2 meters high. This was definitely not a staircase for the size of a human being. He estimated that the guy who walked on this staircase was at least 10 meters tall. They measured the height of the staircase and flew up directly. After circling around, they saw the 2nd floor of the energy hall at a height of more than 300 meters. As for the 2nd floor, there was nothing special to pay attention to. There were 2 passages on this floor. One was connected to the chaotic energy space outside, and the other continued to go deeper into the temple. In addition, there was a space like a lookout tower. The wall of the tower was several meters high. Yin Nuoxing and the others had to fly to the wall to see the other side of the wall. The lookout tower faced the hall full of demon statues. Standing here, the entire hall could be seen at a glance. They stood on the wall and watched for a while. Then they continued to go deeper into the temple through the passage. After a while, they saw a spacious balcony at the end of the passage. The corresponding space outside the balcony was still the space covered by the chaotic energy clouds. Then, the passage was cut off here. What's wrong with this? Do you want us to jump down? They stood on the edge of the balcony and looked at the chaotic space occupied by the energy. Hui pointed at the space outside and couldn't help but to say with his eyelids twitching, "Jumping is definitely impossible." Yin Nuoxing shook her head and turned back to the passage. "Let's go back and look for it. Maybe there is another way." We thought for a while and couldn't help but mutter, "I really didn't know that the demon who lived in this temple had such fun." Yin Nuoxing, who was walking in front, suddenly retracted his footsteps. His eyes revealed a pondering expression. He raised his head and suddenly said, "I have a friend who once said, the longer a person lives, the more they like to cause trouble. That person has also been sealed here for who knows how long, so it's normal for him to cause trouble, right?" Well, it seems to make sense. Hui pinched his chin and nodded. Then he looked at Yin Nuoxing with a funny look. He kept poking his waist with his elbow. "What about the friend? What kind of friend?" Yin Nuoxing flicked her hair in his face. "I don't remember who said it. I can't tell you." "Oh, what about them? Which one? Them or them? Or them?" Long-winded. Hurry up and find a way. Returning to the passage just now, they looked up at the walls on both sides and pretended to look around from the perspective of the giant who was at least 10 meters tall. If there was another way, it could only be on the wall. Yao Guang was looking around. Suddenly, she rubbed her eyes. It seemed that something was irritating her eyes. Whenever she opened her eyes, she would have such a feeling. Tears were about to come out of her eyes. She quickly lowered her head and was stunned for a moment. That feeling suddenly disappeared. Yao Guang rubbed her eyes that were still a little uncomfortable while looking at the wall on the right. She didn't feel that kind of feeling. Then she said to Yin Nuoxing happily, "There is something on the wall on the left." Yin Nuoxing tilted her head and looked at the wall on the left. After a while, she lowered her head and looked at Yao Guang. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. There is such a feeling." Yin Nuoxing frowned and looked at the pure white wall that was no different from other places. We had already taken the lead and jumped into the air. His line of sight swept over the entire wall. Suddenly, he slapped at a place. Bang! With a loud noise, the wall in front of them suddenly burst open. It was a door that was exactly the same size as the wall. "Feng, there's a rune here that we saw in the hall just now, but it is badly damaged." Yin Nuoxing and the others looked up. A black rune appeared in the space where Hui slapped just now. It was exactly the same as the rune in the middle of the door they saw when they stepped into the monster hall. "You mean it was damaged?" As soon as we landed, Yin Nuoxing asked, "Was it damaged by an external force or caused by the loss of energy over time?" "It seems to have been damaged. There's some energy left here, but in a while, that little trace will be washed away by the dark energy." We came in time. Young Master Shen lowered his head and pondered for a moment. "They probably found this place before us, and then, in that case, aren't they already hanging in there?" Yin Nuoxing suddenly laughed. Young Master Shun was stunned for a moment. Then, he suddenly let out a low chuckle. "That's right. In this world, the only other energy that could appear here and destroy the rune should be those people who came in earlier than them. Otherwise, they should have been able to see the first batch of people who visited them. It seems that you hate them." Yin Nuoxing observed his expression. Suddenly, she said, "You forgot about coming here, but you remember that they came in first, and—" "Ahem." Young Master Shen coughed and stopped smiling. He nodded. "There is a reason, but this is not the time to talk about it. I will tell you if there is a chance." Young Master Shen suddenly showed a strange smile. "And by the way, tell me about you." "As you wish." Yin Nuoxing smiled indifferently. They had made so much noise. If young Master Shen did not notice it, then there was a real problem. As for how to deal with it, he was not worried about it. Although the person in front of him was also from a twisted race, he seemed to have a lot of conflicts with the real high-level people. Talking to him might be unexpected. They stepped on. No, flew forward along the new huge stairs. On the way, they passed by a platform in the middle of the stairs. There was a balcony on the side of the platform that extended to the area of chaotic energy. One balcony on each floor. What was in the mind of the guy who built this temple? Why did he have to build so many balconies? Why did he have to change the height of the balcony to look at the scenery and adjust his mood? But there was only a space made of chaotic energy outside. Pushing open the door at the end of the stairs, Yin Nuoxing breathed a sigh of relief. "I thought we would see something dangerous when we came in, like monsters, or stepped into a labyrinth that is not easy to get out of. But in the end, we just kept walking in a temple," Hui said. The door was pushed open silently. Hui was the first to poke his head inside. After a glance, he could not help but exclaim, "Oh, each hall is more advanced than the other. The one in front is the energy hall, and the one in front is the monster hall. What is this one? The creation main hall?" Yin Nuoxing pushed the door to the end. Young Master Shun and Yao Guang could not help but look inside. The latter could not help but exclaim in a low voice after seeing so many things. This hall was much larger than the previous two halls. The descending stairs left a circular sunken platform in every corner of the hall. Every platform had a ray of light surging into the air and finally gathered in a huge sphere that was thousands of feet in size. Those were stars, and some of them even had companion stars. The largest platform even had a solar system, a fiery red sphere that was thousands of feet in size, and dozens of stars orbiting around it. This set of things alone occupied at least one-third of the area of the hall. These stars, I can see signs of life. Young Master Shun moved closer to the star closest to them. Squinting his eyes, he could still see things that were even smaller than dust inside the 1,000-feet-wide ball. They were still moving around inside, as if they were living beings living in the star. Life? Are you sure that is not a monster? We also came over and stared inside. Young Master Shun shook his head. That should be a normal life. If I'm not wrong, it should be the stars that exist in the world outside. We frowned and wondered, why is it looking at these things? Well, I have a guess, but should there's a sound. Young Master Shin's expression changed, and he quickly shut up. Hui quickly covered his mouth. Yao Guang moved closer to Yin Nuoxing. Mei Mao looked around worriedly. She suddenly regretted following them. Yin Nuoxing raised his head and looked into the depths of the hall. He heard the sound and even found the place where the sound came from. Chapter 1444. In the spacious hall, there was only the flickering light of the stars. Yin Nuoxing and the others had blocked out all sounds. At this moment, if there was any sound in the hall, it was only the faint sound of the stars here. Then there was another very, very faint sound that was still echoing in their ears. It sounded like a whisper that sounded very far away. Yin Nuoxing stared in one direction until the meaningless whisper became clearer in his ears. Then, he lifted his feet and walked forward quickly. Hui and the others hurried to catch up. They walked with the wind, but made no sound. It was as if they deliberately created a dead atmosphere in the hall. After bypassing the huge star system in the middle of the hall, Yin Nuoxing turned and walked in another direction. He was getting faster and faster. His body was almost pulled into a shadow. Yao Guang had to run faster to keep up with his speed. The light of the huge star system was not strong enough in this space. After walking for a while, the sight in front of them dimmed again. However, before the light dimmed completely, another strong light appeared in front of them. In the darkness, a dark green big star suddenly appeared. Scorching tongues of fire were constantly erupting from its body. It looked extremely unstable. The leaking energy had reached a visible level. It turned into a circle of green energy that surrounded them like a rope that strangled them to death. Both stars were huge, but the one in front of them looked much more majestic than the fiery red star just now. Yin Nuoxing could see that its body was beginning to break apart. I think I've seen this star before. Young Master Shin suddenly broke the dead silence here. It's in the night sky. Every night, when it's late at night, it will emerge from the horizon. I caught a glimpse of it at that time. It should be this one. Then, the stars that exist in this hall are the actual stars that exist in the starry sky outside. Hui touched his chin and nodded. Why is that guy staring at these things? Yin Nuoxing shook his head. His gaze passed over the dark green sun and looked behind him. What do you want to do? Just ask it. Behind the dark green sun, their line of sight became clear because of the existence of the light. Yin Nuoxing and the others saw another huge door frame, but this door frame no longer had a door. There were only two transparent blue curtains hanging down from above. The curtains were dotted with stars, as if it was a real star field. They pushed open the heavy curtains and walked into the next hall. The space in front of them was full of light, which allowed them to see the whole big space at a glance. They passed through the door frame and appeared at the top of a long spiral staircase. It was not far from the top of the hall. This space was extending downwards for their position. They looked around for a while and also looked down. Then they were shocked. According to the things in the hall in front, Yin Nuoxing and the others guessed that there should be some things placed in this hall, such as a bigger star or something, or simply a world of light. However, he still guessed wrong. Even Huey's somewhat jumpy thinking didn't guess this point, and couldn't help but be stunned in place. In this hall, there was no platform for the stars. There was a huge black sphere below. It was a three-dimensional and transparent sphere. Countless stars could be seen inside it. Half of the stars were transparent white or blue, while the stars on the other side were uncomfortably scarlet. Speaking of which, those light spots seemed to be too big to be stars. They were not little white lights, but a ball. The big black ball contained thousands of white, blue, and red balls. That's a void. Yin Nuoxing's expression changed a little. An entire void area. The light spots inside are the light spots of every world. The scarlet ones should be the light spots of our world, young Master Shin suddenly said. His eyes flashed. In an instant, he understood a lot of things. And the other ones should be the origin world of the order world. What have you thought of? Yin Nuoxing tilted her head and looked at him. Something bad. It can be traced back to the last era, something related to my race. Young Master Shun smiled helplessly. At this time, he used my race because he had recognized that Yin Nuoxing and the others did not come from the same world as him. He also guessed that they should be the gods from that place. After all, such a level of order power could not be found in any random world of order. Is it related to the distorted origin of the race? Yin Nuoxing muttered. They jumped down from the spiral staircase directly and stood on the ground to look up at the huge black ball that was about 20 to 30,000 feet in size. Yin Nuoxing noticed that there was a trace of energy at the bottom of the ball. She could not help but lower her head and look at the 1 or 2 strands of black energy that separated from the ball all the way to the ground. Then, she looked in the direction where it flowed to the right. She saw that the energy stretched all the way to a huge staircase. She watched as it flowed from the middle of the staircase to the front until it reached the end of the staircase. There was a black energy light pillar there, and behind the light pillar, there was a huge black throne. I have witnessed the birth and destruction of countless worlds. I have also seen the rise and fall of countless lives. I have watched the unchanging turbulence of the void. Countless years have passed, but nothing in this great world has changed. The battle between order and chaos has never stopped. Your appearance here proves this point. Yin Nuoxing and the others' expressions changed drastically. The clear voice was directly transmitted to their minds. Moreover, the language was not any language that they knew. They understood the meaning of the sentence directly. Yin Nuoxing subconsciously pressed a hand on Yao Guang's head. A surge of energy surged into her body to protect her. However, it was so sudden that the latter was startled. Looking at their extremely serious expressions, she did not dare to move or speak. The origin order has dissipated for countless years. The great world has gone through a great purge. However, the eternal chaos has not come. Everything has returned from chaos to the new order. In the future that we foresee, there is no place for the world of order. Chaos reigns supreme, the void disintegrates, and this great world will eventually return to chaos. Yin Nuoxing and the others looked at each other. Their expressions were extremely serious. Just as they were about to run towards the place where the voice came from, young Master Shun suddenly pulled them back. Other than the serious expression on his face, there was also panic and helplessness. Young Master Shun's gaze startled him. I know what is here. What is it? Yin Nuoxing and Hui were a little nervous, so much so that their breathing was a little rapid. This place was related to the origin of the twisted race. At least that was what young Master Shun said. And there was also a demon here. In their previous speculation, the twisted race. Young Master Shun took a deep breath. Sweat dripped down from his forehead. His lips trembled slightly. This world was exiled. I only heard that a secret about my race is sealed here. Now it seems that this secret should be related to the origin of my race. That devil shadow is the creator of my race, he said. Yin Nuoxing and Huey's pupil shrank. Okay, the truth was out. Yin Nuoxing's speculation was finally verified. However, there were still many things that they needed to speculate. What they had was just some puzzle pieces. If they wanted to know the complete truth, they still needed to put the puzzle pieces together themselves. Yin Nuoxing patted young Master Shun on the shoulder. This topic can be talked about for a long time, but now is definitely not a good time to talk about it. Let's solve the problem here first. Don't worry, everything will be fine. Young Master Shun was shaken by the pat. He raised his head and looked into Yin Nuoxing's eyes. The fear in his eyes faded slightly. He nodded hard. Okay. The few of them walked in the direction of the flow of the black energy. They walked up the stairs that were finally not that high. A light came from nowhere and lit up the space. It also lit up the throne at the end of the stairs. On the dark throne, a huge black figure was sitting. It was a humanoid body. Its face had no facial features. Its whole body was as black as a bucket of ink. In the huge black body, there were white and blue stars connected by lines of energy, outlining the appearance of its whole body's skeleton. Then, a huge amount of energy came from its body. Even Yin Nuoxing felt his heart palpitate. That was the power close to the peak of non-order, the peak of chaos. Its position was definitely much higher than his position in order. It was the demon that emerged from the Moonworld Lake. Its aura was the same, but its appearance was different. Sitting here, its power seemed to be more complete. The demon lowered its head. Yin Nuoxing noticed that a gaze fell on him. A voice rumbled in the depths of his mind. Countless years have passed. Everything that belonged to the beginning of the primordial realm has disappeared without a trace. Who would have thought that one day you would appear here? Me? Yin Nuoxing was stunned. It knew me? No one has been able to safely merge the order and chaos of the beginning of the primordial realm into one. They couldn't do it. No one could do it. Who are you? Who are you from the beginning of the primordial realm? Yin Nuoxing's cheeks twitched. So this guy didn't know him, and just guessed that he was from the beginning of the primordial realm, which was the mythological era, from the strange things about him. But in fact, he didn't know if he was or not. His memory could only be traced back to this era a few years ago. He didn't know exactly when. I don't know what you're talking about. Yin Nuoxing took a step forward and said calmly, "The realm of the gods, the observer, Feng Ling. This is all I know about myself." Young Master Shun's cheeks twitched. He guessed that Yin Nuoxing was a god from the realm of the gods, but he didn't expect her to have an even bigger background. Now that he heard it, his eyes almost popped out. Hui walked forward and stood shoulder to shoulder with Yin Nuoxing. He said sternly, "The guardian of the realm of the gods, Hui. So, shouldn't you introduce yourself, Dark Eye?" Young Master Shun's foot slipped, and he almost fell down the stairs behind him. Even two gods were here, but this was far beyond his expectations. The air suddenly became abnormally heavy. No one spoke, but young Master Shun and Yao Guang could feel the pressure from the confrontation between the three people, and the air was getting stronger and stronger. It was almost suffocating. The realm of the gods. After about 10 minutes, the demonic figure on the throne started to speak. Suddenly, there was a voice that sounded like laughter or something else. "The world that carries all their dreams, the world that carries all the hopes of the world of order. Of course I know about it. It hasn't been destroyed yet. That surprised me a little. However, the ending will not change. Illusory hope will not be able to change everything. This world will return to eternal chaos. The hope in your hearts, let me destroy it." The roaring sound made the space tremble violently. The sudden burst of energy made Yin Nuoxing and Hui turn pale with fright. Yin Nuoxing's figure turned silver white in an instant, and Hui also became fully armed in an instant. "Back off!" Yin Nuoxing threw Jing Yuanji to Yao Guang. With a wave of her hand, she threw her and young Master Shun to the edge of the hall. She reached out her left hand and hit Huey's right hand very tacitly. They shouted in unison, "The realm of creation!" As soon as the realm of creation spread out with all the power of the two people, a cloud of black mist that was so thick that it was like a solid body rushed in front of them and blasted toward the two people. Yin Nuoxing hastily formed the realm of creation. She only had time to spread out a few magic circles to deal with the attack. From the attack to her throwing off the three people and forming the realm of creation, everything happened in the same second. Bang! Boom! The energy at the apex of order and chaos collided violently. The dazzling light bloomed as if hundreds of millions of worlds were collapsing in front of their eyes. The chaotic and disorderly destructive energy made Yin Nuoxing and Hui flustered. They mobilized their own rules and divine right to constantly resist the suppression and ruling power that spread out from this space. After hastily dealing with the first attack, Yin Nuoxing and Hui retreated quickly. Just as they were about to stabilize their bodies, another huge black energy hand that was tens of thousands of feet long appeared in front of them in an instant. Before the energy that could collapse the void and the primordial realm reached them, the defense mechanism in Yin Nuoxing and Hui's body had already activated automatically. Before they had time to defend, the palms slapped them into a meteor and slammed them hard into the wall of the hall. The remaining dark energy in their bodies turned into a huge energy impact and burst out, making the two people completely disappear. The energy of the Yuanshi realm. Young Master Shen looked at this scene, and his heart was already cold. He was so shocked that he lost his expression. In the world of order, at least at the top of the world of order at this moment, the two clergymen of the divine world had joined forces, but they were swatted away like flies. Was the Yuanshi realm really so unbeatable? Bang! The wall of the hall collapsed, revealing a wider space behind it. Yin Nuoxing and Hui slowly appeared from the dust. Both of them were imposing, but their bodies were covered with injuries. They looked at each other with cold faces. They didn't need to speak or communicate with their souls. Just by looking at each other, they knew what each other meant. Yuanshi, it was the Yuanshi realm. For the time being, they didn't know what level it was, but today they were afraid that they would die here if something went wrong. They raised their heads at the same time. The demonic figure was still sitting on the throne without moving at all. The gaze that was cast at them did not carry any meaning or emotion. It's stronger than Qing Qi, but I don't know how much stronger it is. Yin Nuoxing helplessly expressed that he could not beat it. It was a coincidence that he killed Qing Qi the last time, and this time, in the face of the absolute difference in power, it seemed that there was no way he could do anything. He did not have a divinity carrier, and if that divinity carrier was still there, this time he could set off fireworks on the demonic shadow's head. Yin Nuoxing lowered his head and looked at his hands, and his eyes flashed. I have a way, but we have to consume its power first. Just tell me what you want me to do. I'll beat it up, and you'll be beaten up. Hui was stunned for a moment, and he reached out to pick his ear. Huh? Can you reorganize your words? I don't have time to joke with you now. Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly. If we can't get out, this demonic shadow will definitely kill us here. You don't feel it, but I can feel it. He stared at the motionless shadow on the throne. And that Qing Qi. No, it's the same as the underworld. They both have an indelible evil intention towards the world of order. Qing Qi and the underworld may be postnatal influences, but this demonic shadow, its hostility towards the world of order, is definitely innate. The innate opposition between the non-order life form and the world of order. That's understandable. Hui muttered and nodded. The demonic shadow did not take the initiative to attack Yin Nuoxing and Yin Nuoxing, who were talking quickly. It waited for a long time, and when it saw that there was some movement, it slowly sat up straight. Have you finished your discussion? Come on, let's fight. Chapter 1445. A mighty burst of energy that was countless times more powerful than the creation of the heavens and earth shattered the chaotic energy space. The aftermath of the energy vaporized the remaining corner of the temple into nothingness. Under the fiercely shining energy flames, there were hundreds of millions of huge arrays. The light of these arrays was brighter than ever before. Young Master Shun held Yao Guang and stood at a distance in the chaotic space. He could see very clearly from the side. Each magic circle only had a thin layer, and the thickness was negligible. However, the magic circles that appeared in front of him at this moment were stacked layer by layer. He could see that the thickness of the magic circles was very obvious. From the side, it looked like a biscuit. Boom, boom. The dark red destructive energy was rampaging in the chaotic space. Every energy shockwave could explode an entire world of light into powder. Yin Nuoxing's body was blooming with an unprecedentedly strong, silvery white light. He stood at the center of the magic circles, like an emperor of the magic circles. The hundreds of billions of magic circles were his soldiers, his weapons, and his strength. If he was the emperor of the magic circles, then on the other side of the space, the guy who was still sitting on the throne, even after the temple was demolished, was the master of this space. At this moment, the two of them felt that all the chaotic energy in this space was the energy released by the magic circles. They were equivalent to plunging into the headquarters of the enemy that had been operating for countless years. Fortunately, they had activated the realm of creation earlier, so the magic circles, order level, and other aspects of the magic circles did not affect them much. They could suppress the magic circle's influence with just a little bit of power. Yin Nuoxing waved his hand and pointed to the distance. Behind him, countless magic circles exploded with a loud roar, releasing a monstrous amount of energy. One after another, the attacks that had materialized and shone brightly with energy rushed towards the demonic shadow. Fortunately, they were fighting in this special space. If they were fighting in the outside space, the void and the land of nothingness would have already sunk countless times. In this space, where there was nothing to obstruct them, Yin Nuoxing and the demonic shadow could throw powerful energy attacks at each other from any direction at any time. This was also the reason why Yin Nuoxing asked Hui to help him defend. He had to use all of his strength to attack, and didn't have the slightest bit of thought to defend. Milky Way, gather! A light shout came out of his mouth. With the magic circles as the center, tens of thousands of magic circles appeared out of thin air and surrounded the magic circles in an airtight spherical formation. Then, countless energy waves burst out from the magic circles behind him. After hundreds of times of energy waves, the energy waves finally gushed out from the spherical formation and blasted toward the magic circle's face. Behind him, in front of him, and in other directions, his senses sensed fatal threats coming from all directions. If any of these attacks landed on him, he would probably fall into nothingness along with the hundreds of billions of magic circles and be doomed eternally. Son, come at me. Come at me, idiot. Appercent. Countless black energy waves burst out from the space. There were even a few places where there was not a trace of physical attack. There was only an intention to attack. However, Hui knew where the attacks were coming at them. He gave up on holding a sword and a shield in one hand and simply carried two giant shields in the air. There were also thousands of giant golden shields around him. He swore in the celestial realm as he fearlessly rushed toward the magic circle's attacks with his two shields. The huge golden barrier enveloped him and Yin Nuoxing, protecting the latter from all directions. However, when Hui judged that there were some attacks that he could not let land directly on the barrier, he would rush forward with the two giant shields. The violent energy waves from the other emperor in this space kept splashing on the golden barrier like monstrous waves. It looked really unstable, but that was the barrier's own defensive phenomenon. As long as no energy waves rushed into the barrier, it would be considered blocked. Oh. Hui felt that there was a destructive energy in front of him that was so powerful that it sent chills down his spine. It was rushing toward him from the other side of the barrier. He was about to use his face to block the attack of the unknown thing with the two city walls. Then, the space suddenly exploded. Dozens of human faces with endless resentment mixed with black energy rushed toward his face like evil spirits rushing out from hell. Hui was so scared that his hair stood on end. The two city walls pushed forward together and pushed the divine barrier forward. The energy that rushed from the front hit the giant shield head-on. The attack was deflected, drawing a black trace and disappearing into the chaotic space. Wherever the energy passed, the entire barrier was stirred up like a boiling golden ocean. That's the energy of the dozens of high-level heavenly origin gods that came in before us. Young Master Shun's eyes widened. He could not hide the shock on his face. They were indeed dead. Even their souls and the heavenly origin gods had fallen into the hands of the demon shadow. If we had chosen to block the attack head-on, the golden barrier would have shattered by now. Even if the attack was deflected successfully, it would have caused some damage to the barrier. However, The guardian of the celestial realm was really something. His defense was truly worthy of the title guardian. With his strength alone, he withstood the bombardment of his race's creator for half an hour. Although he was wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf, flustered and panicked all the time, and every attack that he had to personally deal with made him run around in circles, he was really tough. The Guardian's barrier was a powerful barrier that was second only to the creation's barrier. It was known as the first barrier in the world of order, and also Huey's most powerful defense. The seemingly ordinary barrier, which looked like an ocean being hit by a heavy object, was actually very mysterious. To put it bluntly, every attack that landed on the barrier would be repeatedly weakened by thousands of times. Then, the attack would collide with the barrier for tens of thousands of times. If the energy was not completely depleted by then, the remaining energy would be assimilated by the void and the land of nothingness. If there was still energy left, it would have to go through dozens of defenses before it could really surge into the barrier. However, at that level, the energy that could penetrate the barrier would not be very powerful. Another thing that dazzled young Master Shun and Yao Guang was Yun Nuoxing's attacks. It was a living example of what it meant to be a moving apocalypse. Cannons were bombarding everything, and it was a self-propelled source of disaster. Every attack released by the hundreds of billions of magic circles was a destructive disaster in any world. A normal high-level Empyrean god of origin would probably disappear if they were grazed by it, and a peak-level Empyrean god of origin would be injured if they were grazed by it. As expected of the Guardian of Order, the guy who is infinitely close to the primeval realm, young Master Shun looked at the commotion that seemed to be hundreds of billions of worlds exploding in front of him. He only felt that his eyes were a little dazed. This was actually the truth. However, in this void, not many people in the celestial realm, including the people in the celestial realm, knew about the Observer. Under such circumstances, how did he get the title of Guardian of Order? Yin Nuoxing and Hui were very curious about this. Is there an end to this? At percent, Hui Yi's shield knocked away a huge energy storm that was millions of feet in size. He held two shields and panted. He stomped the two shields that were like city walls into the space, one on the left and one on the right. He activated the Guardian Barrier to the maximum. Eternal protection. The dark energy that came crashing down like waves hit the Guardian Barrier at this moment, but it did not cause much of a commotion. Instead, the energy was bounced back like a tsunami and then rushed into the chaotic space with the waves. I really can't figure out the way that guy attacks. It's too strange. It's almost on my face, but I still can't feel it clearly. Hui floated to Yun Nuoxing's side. He saw that his face was as cold as ice, and his face was full of seriousness. He then looked at the place where countless explosions were happening. He could not help but ask, "Can you hurt it?" "I don't know. I'm trying." Yin Nuoxing shook his head. He was infinitely close to the primeval stage. He could be used as a heavenly god who had just entered the primeval stage because of his accumulation. His strength had reached that level, but he did not reach the final leap. He was still a little short, and he was still not at the primeval stage. He only touched that level with his own methods and methods. If 100 times is not enough, 1,000 times is not enough, 10,000 times is not enough, then 1,000,000 times, 10,000,000 times, until 100,000,000 times. The light on his body became stronger, and the energy reaction from his body became more explosive and violent. He seemed to want to cut himself in half, releasing all the energy without caring about the cost. The silver white on his body even showed signs of turning dark red. The hundreds of billions of array groups trembled again. Young Master Shun and Yao Guang could see with their naked eyes that the thickness of the array groups was increasing bit by bit. That was the superposition of array groups on top of the original array groups, increasing the power of the superposition array groups. 17 million times. Hui pressed down on his clothes that were messed up by the energy storm. He looked at Yun Nuoxing, who was about to burst into flames, and fell silent. Generally speaking, there was a limit to the superposition array groups. There was a limit to the limit of the rules. It was impossible to superposition it continuously. Even if the ordinary array groups were superimposed to the thickness of a world, they would not be able to deliver a blow that was comparable to that of a deity. However, in the realm of creation, in the realm of divinity that they had unleashed first, the limit of the rules was shattered. He could do this, but he did not know how serious the damage to himself would be if he strengthened the array groups without limit. "Don't be distracted," Yin Nuashing shouted. Hui came back to his senses. His opponent's attack was also becoming more and more violent, as if he wanted to destroy this space and perish together with them. The fighting style of these two people was to trade lives for lives. They did not care about their own lives when they fought. However, he was here to protect Yin Nuashing. Eternity, Hui grabbed a piece of the city wall and threw it out, once again deflecting a frontal attack. He turned his head to look at Yin Nuashing and said in his soul, "How's the preparation of the origin energy?" Yin Nuashing was silent. She shook her head and said, "It is not injured." "Huh, this power, my power, has definitely reached the realm of Yuanshi," but Yin Nuashing was silent. She did not speak anymore. She just put all her attention into every attack. She was also making adjustments. She did not know why she could not hurt her opponent. The demonic shadow was not using its face to block her attacks. It was also defending. If it was really so powerful that they could not stop it, it could have rushed over and torn them apart. Why was it in a stalemate here? Either the enemy was mentally ill, or it was just playing around. The third situation was that it wasn't as invincible as it appeared to be. The dozens of heavenly origin gods from the distorted races had still managed to inflict a small amount of damage on it. That's right, there were only 3 situations. Hui had thought of this as well, but he could not figure out what the problem was. However, he knew that if he did not figure it out, they would definitely be the first to be defeated in this stalemate. No matter how great Maple's energy capacity was, he was only at the peak of reciprocity. He would run out of energy sooner or later, especially when he was pouring out 17 million times as much energy as he could. His opponent was a true origin stage expert, and they were still in his territory. Nuashing. 2 short syllables rang in their minds. The sudden burst of powerful pressure made Hui come back to his senses. He controlled the 2 huge city walls to block the guardian barrier. Then, a burst of collapsing energy like the collapse of the void pressed on his barrier, shaking his mind. "I can't stop attacking. If I reduce the pressure, the instantaneous counterattack is enough to kill." Yin Nuashing also saw the situation in front of him. The opponent had sped up the pace of the battle. He could only put everything on the line to suppress its crazy attack. "I can only leave it to you." F*CK it, just attack at will. This level, I could still withstand it. Hui yelled loudly, and once again used his stubborn twin shields to hold up the barrier, resisting the crazy collapsing force. The ground suddenly shook violently. Jing Yuanji and Dao Tian staggered and half-knelt on the ground. The whole world in their sight was shaking violently. The 2 of them looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. What's going on now? Dao Tian leaned on the wall and felt the whole world shaking. Even the endless corridor seemed to be tilting. The space has become unstable. A huge amount of energy is leaking. No, it's not leaking. It's condensing. There is energy condensing in this place. Jing Yuanji's expression trembled. A huge amount of malice suddenly appeared in the consciousness maze. All the energy imprints I left behind have sensed this malice. It's looking for us. Let's go. We can't stay here any longer. Dao Heaven was pulled along by Jing Yuanji, and he quickly followed. It was very troublesome to run in this place, so they could only stumble forward. Dao Heaven looked at Jing Yuanji, who had an incomparably serious expression, and couldn't help but ask, "What happened? Why did the maze suddenly move?" Jing Yuanji pondered and couldn't help but look back. It was deep and dark, and she couldn't see anything. "I have 2 guesses. One is that we are approaching the center or the exit of the maze. They want to trap us here, so it's moving. The second is Lord Feng and the others may have done something outside that made it feel dangerous. It needs to mobilize all the energy and has to give up the consciousness maze. Dao Tian thought for a while and shook his head. There's another possibility. Jing Yuanji was stunned. What is it? Big Brother and the others are doing something outside, and we're about to touch something important. This will have a huge impact on what Big Brother and the others want to do. Then, something wants to stop us. Dao Tian's eyes flashed. Seeing how urgent it is, it must be. Be careful. Jing Yuanji hurriedly pulled Dao Tian, and the two of them fell forward and rolled for dozens of meters. There was a loud explosion behind them, and the wall they had just passed collapsed. In their current state, just that level of attack would have been enough to kill them. Dao Tian pulled Jing Yuanji up. Looking at the mess behind them, he suddenly put his hands on his hips and puffed out his chest proudly. I was right. Look at how anxious you are. You want to kill and destroy. Big sister, run. Jing Yuanji grabbed Dao Heaven and ran away. She couldn't help but smile bitterly. It was true that trouble came from careless talk. Before Jing Yuanji could finish her sentence, the ground behind her began to collapse. Moreover, it was collapsing toward them. If they were thrown out of the consciousness maze, they might lose the hope of returning to their original bodies. Up ahead, up ahead. Dao Heaven, who was being carried on her shoulder, couldn't help but scream along the way. She saw a large black shadow wriggling on the ground in front of her, and she was so scared that she screamed. Jing Yuanji hurriedly sped up. Before the unknown black shadow could take shape, she passed by it with a swoosh. Then, the collapsing space swallowed the black shadow that was taking shape. After narrowly avoiding a large number of obstacles and attacks from unknown things, Dao Tian was so scared that he almost cried. Why is it that after coming here, we are either running or being chased? You ask me, I don't know. I'm being chased too. Jing Yuanji still had time to respond. She was already running as fast as she could, but the space she passed by was collapsing faster than her. It was getting closer and closer to them. Being carried on his shoulder, Dao Heaven suddenly swung his hand and grabbed a part of the wall that was protruding from the two sides of the wall. With a forceful grab, he pulled out the entire 1-meter-long metal bar and swung it around like a stick. What are you doing? Jing Yuanji was stunned by her actions. Then, seeing Dao Tian throw the metal bar forward, she couldn't help but ask, "There's something in front, As soon as Dao Tian opened his mouth, the two of them heard a horrifying scream in front of them. It made Jing Yuanji and Dao Tian's hair stand on end. That sound was too horrifying. They didn't know if some evil spirit had appeared. Under the constant pressure of the collapsing sound behind them, Jing Yuanji and Dao Tian quickly arrived at the place where the sound had come from. They saw the broken metal bar lying on the ground. Dao Tian looked at it and was stunned. I just threw it in a straight line. It hit something. Squatting down, Jing Yuanji reached out and brushed the top of the metal bar. She grabbed a mass of black energy. It should have hit some kind of energy life form. Whatever, run first. Jing Yuanji took a deep breath and ran even faster. Dao Heaven suddenly patted her shoulder and said, "Wait a minute. Big sister, look behind you." Jing Yuanji turned around. The passage behind them stopped collapsing, but the trembling of the maze did not weaken. After the passage behind them collapsed, there was only darkness. It was more complete than nothingness. Jing Yuanji had no doubt that if the two of them fell in, they would be disintegrated into dust in less than a second by the chaotic rules there. It stopped. Jing Yuanji muttered. She could feel that the evil spirit was still there, but she didn't know why the collapsing did not spread to here. Door. Dao Tian patted Jing Yuanji and pointed ahead. The two of them turned around and looked ahead. There was a door that was hundreds of feet tall. It was bigger than the hall and the entrance of the passage they saw before. When they first came here, there was no such door at all. They didn't know why it suddenly appeared in front of them. Dao Tian jumped down from Jing Yuanji's shoulder and reached out to press on the door. It's open. I don't know what will be inside when we open the door. We can't keep standing here. Jing Yuanji took a deep breath and nodded to Dao Tian. Open it. What we see inside, we'll talk about it then. Dao Tian swallowed and nodded hard. He and Jing Yuanji each pressed on one side of the door. The two of them pushed hard and pushed the door in front of them open. With a loud bang, some light came out from the gap of the door. It was a dark light. Just a glance at it made them feel that their strength was drained. However, it seemed to be a weakening effect, not a continuous depriving of their strength. After pushing the door open a gap, Jing Yuanji and Dao Tian flashed into the mysterious place. The door behind them closed with a heavy sound and then disappeared quietly. The hall in front of them became a closed hall. There were only the two of them and the huge mass of black light in front of them. Chapter 1446. It was a huge, spherical space. Along the walls of the space, there were many stone, pillar-like things embedded in the walls. Jing Yuanji and Dao Tian walked in from between two of the pillars. Energy so dense that it became solid fell from the ceiling of the space, flowing diagonally along the walls. Then it drilled into the pillars and turned back into energy, emitting a dim light. At the center of the ceiling of the hall, there was a large cloud of black energy mist. That cloud of mist was about 1,000 to 2,000 meters long. At its core, there was a crimson core in the shape of a cracked planet. That core was surging, and the layer of cloud-like energy on the outside was also surging. This thing occupied half the volume of the hall with its imposing manner. It was also constantly surging like a cloud. Every time that crimson core flashed violently, the energy of this space would tremble because of it. Dao Heaven looked at the cloud of energy in shock. What is that? Jing Yuanji cautiously walked forward and looked up at the boiling cloud of energy, her pretty face solemn. That should be the core of this consciousness maze. But that's not all. I also feel very, very, very rich divinity, laws, and quasi-divine power from it. And all of them are the opposite of order. It's definitely very high on the non-order ladder. Order, non-order. What are you talking about, big sister? Dao Heaven scratched his head. Huh, didn't I tell you this before? Jing Yuanji looked at Dao Heaven in shock and could not help but frown when she saw Dao Heaven's blank face. It seemed that it was because of the cognitive barrier again. Even Dao Heaven, who was heavily protected in Lord Feng's soul. It seemed that Lord Feng and the others would run into a lot of trouble outside. If that was the case, they could not delay any longer. Let's not talk about that for now. This cloud of energy is the core of the consciousness maze. As long as we destroy it, we can return to the real world. Dao Heaven looked at his blue-haired big sister's solemn face and did not suspect anything. He looked up at the big thing with her. But how do we destroy it? We are only a consciousness here, and big sister, you only have half a soul. Jing Yuanji, that's the problem. Then, both of them were silent. They stood there and looked at each other in silence. This huge space did not seem to be completely separated from the space they were in just now. They could still feel a faint tremor. It was as if they had just scurried away in an alley in an earthquake. Now, they had just found a relatively safe place. The earthquake was isolated, but there were still 1 or 2 tremors that were strong enough to reach them. Jing Yuanji stood there in a daze for half an hour, and Dao Tian circled the space for half an hour as well. The two racked their brains, but could not come up with a solution. With just 2 consciousnesses here, what kind of destructive power could they create? It was unrealistic to use the scene to make it self-destruct. Big sister, do you have a solution? Dao Heavens, of course. Dao Heavens, of course. She had no clue. Dao Heaven's big sister. There is a way. Huh? Dao Heaven was stunned. He saw some hope, and hope on Jing Yuanji's face. She seemed to have entrusted her hope to someone, and it was someone she trusted. That could only be her big brother. But her big brother was far away from them. How could he help them? Seeing Dao Heaven's shocked and puzzled expression, Jing Yuanji's hand seals changed slowly, and she said softly, "Consciousness does not have much power, but our main life form is in the form of energy, and I still have half of my soul here. For an energy life form, only with the senses and consciousness can we weave a self, and the existence of a self is equivalent to the core of this consciousness maze. The core comes first, and then the body. Master Phone once wrote about an attack that can be launched as long as one has consciousness and soul. However, it can only be launched by an energy life form. It's a trump card among trump cards. Even in a life or death situation, one must use it with caution. Is the price very high? No, you need to be extremely focused. It's like you need to focus your entire body's attention and then pay attention to the minute movements of a person's face in a world, a galaxy, or a star across the void. You don't have that much time to slowly focus in a moment of life and death. Tao Heaven. What kind of unorthodox move is this? After Jing Yuanji finished speaking, she didn't speak again. She opened her eyes wide and concentrated on drawing a very strange rune stroke by stroke. It was a rune composed of soul power and consciousness. It took her a full 10 minutes to breathe a sigh of relief. Tao Heaven couldn't help but lean over to take a look. When she sensed the weak energy coming from the rune, a drop of sweat appeared on her pretty face. Big sister, can this little bit of energy really destroy the core? She looked up at the rolling black cloud. If the two balls of energy collided, Jing Yuanji's ball of energy would probably be annihilated in an instant. This is just a primer. It's used to detonate the target's energy. It's a powerful attack on the level of laws. Jing Yuanji's right hand grabbed the transparent rune, and her long, shapely eyebrows slightly furrowed. I'm just worried that the core of the labyrinth has a special law defense that can block this level of destructive attack. If that's the case, then it really won't. Boom, boom. A dull rumble came from the distance again. Jing Yuanji and Tao Heaven were both startled. The stability of the space had dropped again. This time, they could clearly feel a sense of urgency. The master of the labyrinth was urgently extracting all the energy in the space. Although he didn't know what was happening outside, to be able to force the creator of the labyrinth to draw out the energy of the labyrinth, it could only be that Lord Maple and Lord Hui were doing something outside. Perhaps it was because of this that the demonic shadow didn't notice two ants entering the core of the labyrinth. Soul Thorngo, Jing Yuanji, shook her head and concentrated. Her right hand gripped the soul rune tightly, and then she flicked it toward the huge black cloud above. Without making any noise, it drilled into the cloud, and the energy contained in it suddenly boiled. It was as if a small flame had rushed into the sun without causing any ripples. There was only a strange silence in the space. Tao Heaven had been imagining the scene of an earth-shattering explosion in his mind. However, after waiting for a long time, the energy cloud was still calm. Jing Yuanji could already feel the energy boiling and taking effect, but there was no sign of anything happening. This made her a little stunned. Is there really a law defense? I'll go take a look, Tao Heaven muttered. Jing Yuanji couldn't help but sigh. She gritted her teeth, thinking that the soul rune had failed. Just as she was about to try again, her expression suddenly changed. She hurriedly pressed down Tao Heaven, who was about to jump up, and threw him to the ground. Be careful! The moment he shouted, the energy lines connected to the walls of the hall suddenly turned grayish-white, as if they had been petrified. The grayish color quickly spread toward the core. Then, the energy that had been quiet for several minutes was suddenly covered by a layer of gray. The energy inside was very restless and violent. A low, muffled sound suddenly rang out in their minds. Tao Heaven, who had been looking up curiously, hurriedly covered her head. However, the moment she lowered her head, she saw a dazzling energy suddenly erupt. The dazzling light rapidly approached the two of them, stunning her for a moment. Eula, watch me. Send you flying. Huey's hair was disheveled. He held two giant shields that were like city walls and waved them with all his might. He fiercely blocked every attack that came at him, as if he was dancing. The space was filled with afterimages left behind by him waving the giant shields. The light of the two guardian shields had already dimmed by half. He was only relying on his own momentum to hold on. In front of him, there was a vast and endless attack that was like a void smashing down on him. Energy blasts, giant palm prints, smelly feet, and thousands of moves from various worlds. They greeted his face as if they were free. The shield and shield were actually no different from his face. Foam, don't worry about me. Beat him up. I can hold on. I can still hold on. I can still hold on. Huey's shield was smashed into pieces. The mixed impact of the dark energy and void energy that rushed over like a solid pillar smashed the shield into pieces. The energy blasts were also successfully pushed back the way they came. The huge explosion of energy swallowed up the countless energy behind it. Bang! The huge explosion of dark energy shook Huey's absolute defense. His other hand trembled violently due to the feedback, and the guardian shield fell out of his hand. He roared and waved his hands to block it. He waved his fist from a distance. He used the guardian shield to hammer away the energy blast time and time again, or he used the shield to take the attacks head-on. I can hold on. I can still hold on. Foam, save me. I really can't hold on any longer. Yin Nuoxing's eyes, which were flashing with a crazy look, suddenly turned to the side. She saw Hui integrating his body into the shield and using his face to block the hundreds of billions of attacks that came at him every second. Looking at his sorry state, she also gritted her teeth and turned her head to the side, no longer paying attention to him. The energy blast from her attacks became more and more violent and vast. Every second and every moment, the energy of the entire void region smashed onto the demon's face. 97 million times the power. Is it still not enough? Yin Nuoxing let out the craziest roar from the bottom of her heart. Should she bet everything on it? At this moment, your weak souls of order can't withstand a battle of this level. The demon's indifferent voice reverberated in the space, but to the two of them, it sounded like a taunt. Obediently, surrender. F*CKU. $. Hui opened his mouth and swore in the realm of the gods. His eyes emitted a sacred golden light, and a sacred rune appeared in front of his forehead. The moment it appeared, it ignited with golden flames. He roared and punched away the energy that was as heavy as a large world. He waved his hands and condensed two shields that were as huge as planets. Countless golden swords surrounded the shields. I've used countless taunts in my life, but I don't take taunts. Foam, don't worry about me. Worst comes to worst. I'll wait for you on the path of reincarnation. The roar from the soul caused Yin Nuoxing's dark red eyes to turn completely red and black. The veins on his beautiful face bulged, and his expression was ferocious. He let out a crazy roar that sounded like a peerless demon. All of the energy seals on his body shone with an unstoppable light. The origin seal was also ignited by his crazy activation. The nether void sword appeared in front of him, and in an instant, it shattered into neat cubes and merged into his body. 100 million. Yin Nuoxing roared crazily, and the endless formations behind him became thicker again. Furthermore, the new formations that appeared this time were formations that were drawn into another god's generation's language. Groups of formations stacked together without any hindrance or restriction, breaking all the restrictions of the rules, and the power of the formations also skyrocketed without any limit. All of the colors of the energy were replaced with a dark red color. It was as if the light of creation was constantly flashing and exploding in this crazy and chaotic space. This chaotic space seemed so calm under his crazy outburst. Yin Nuoxing waved his hands and slapped them together. 200 million, 70 million times. Soul burning technique. Devour this soul for me. The scarlet rune merged with the origin seal, and the powerful soul that had endured countless years of time was ignited by the scarlet rune. Not enough. Not enough. Not enough. Give me more. Give me more. The body had already lost its physical state, and it became an illusory shadow that floated in the same place. Endless rainbow energy bloomed from its body, and it wanted to tear apart the chaos in this space. Yin Nuoxing did not care about the cost, and used all of the methods that he could reach. 400 million times. Burn until nothing is left. This sudden movement caused Yin Nuoxing to feel a piercing pain and a shattering feeling from the depths of his soul. His crazed expression suddenly froze, and he was confused for a moment. However, a moment later, he was covered by an even more violent light. The origin imprint on his hand lit up with a dazzling light. In the space behind him, a huge blue array formation that was visible to the naked eye appeared with a rumbling sound. It was stacked on top of the array formation that was almost 10,000 feet thick. Then, a group of green array formations, a group of red array formations. He used the origin energy separately, and each type of origin energy weaved a group of array formations. Finally, he merged them together, avoiding the sense of disharmony caused by mixing them in a group of array formations. However, the burden on him was too great. He did not know if the demonic shadow was mocking him, but he knew that his weak soul could not withstand this degree of burning and self-destruction. 800 million times. The energy output that was close to the limit caused the 6 divine halos behind him to be filled with cracks, and they trembled constantly, as if they were afraid of him. The strength of the energy was still increasing without restraint, and the wail of the space was already ringing in everyone's ears. The energy was definitely comparable to the attack of the primeval god of the beginning, or even stronger, but why aren't you hurt? Why aren't you hurt? You go to hell. Yin Nuashing's furious roar caused Huey's expression to tremble. He fiercely bit his lips and forced himself to not think about that problem. He only watched as the primordial realm's collapse continued to fluctuate in front of his eyes. His heart also slowly sank. Up till this point in the battle, that demon shadow was not injured at all. Maple's power had definitely reached the primeval realm. Could it be that the other party was a middle or high-level existence of the origin energy? Then why didn't it just come over and tear them apart? Judging from the energy it was releasing, it did not seem to be of that level. Maple, he smiled bitterly in his heart. His hands were already frozen, and he could not move them anymore. His energy body collapsed a few minutes later than Maple did, and what was left was only an illusory figure, and it was gradually fading. I may not be able to hold on. Wait a moment. I'll see you later. In Yin Nuashing's soul, the little angel, and Sheen, you were also burning their own soul energy, and all of it was transferred to Yin Nuashing, sharing a part of the damage that was getting more and more serious. Their bodies were occupied by many colorful runes and divine patterns, which were their own power. He had never thought of borrowing their power. The purple ball that had been jumping around Siyu and Feng Qing Wang suddenly stopped. It made a gesture as if it was thinking like a naughty child who had suddenly calmed down and was thinking about something. After a while, it jumped down from Siyu, drew a line in the air, and dove into the arms of the little angel. The colorful divine patterns instantly climbed up its small body. The purple and gold light that suddenly appeared in the depths of Yin Nuashing's soul made his eyes, which were at the edge of madness, suddenly clear up for a moment. He lowered his head and pressed his hand on his chest. A kind of energy suddenly appeared in his heart. It was not as strong as the origin energy, nor was it standing at the peak of order, but it was not far from it. This energy was like a bridge, and it made the fragmented energy in his body suddenly merge perfectly. Even the origin energy was no exception. The array formation that had grown to a width of 2 to 3,000 meters suddenly trembled, and colors began to flow between them. In just a few breaths of time, the tens of trillions of array formations had all fused into a single flowing color, and all the energy had fused into one. Little purple soul. Yin Nuashing instantly understood what was happening in his body. He pressed his hand on his chest, and for a moment, he felt extremely conflicted. After a while, he took a deep breath, and all the colors on his body merged into one. There were even more colors that were scrambling to jump into the big vat of dye, making the already beautiful colors even more gorgeous. He reached out his right hand and pressed on the space in front of him. This is the most perfect moment that I can achieve at this moment. The demonic shadow's body that was sitting up suddenly slowly stood up from the throne. It waved its hand gently, and the vast energy that was pouring down from the void all collapsed on the spot. The endless energy that was pouring and could not get close to it. Even though it was separated by the gorgeous scene of void explosion, it could still see the changes on Yun Nuoxing's body. That energy, it's them. That's right. That's the energy of the origin order. That's the energy of the beginning of the elemental realm, the peak and beginning of order. I'll give it everything I have. 6 billion times the energy. Be buried in this void for me. The 6 divine halos behind Yun Nuoxing collapsed, and he let out a final roar. The magic circle behind him also collapsed in the flow of energy that was so huge that it exceeded its limit. All the energy was compressed and condensed into one final blow, and it exploded with a loud bang. That was a power that was enough to penetrate 8 elemental realms. At this moment, the space in front of them suddenly trembled violently, and huge cracks instantly penetrated the entire space in sight. Countless sounds of collapse and destruction echoed in their ears, and the 3 of them were stunned. The demonic shadow even raised its head in surprise. It seems that I've lost. 2 little ants took advantage of the loophole. It contains all the energy of order. It seems that I won't be able to see it again. Hee. The entire space exploded, and everything in front of them turned into bubbles and quickly disintegrated into ashes. Like the yellow sand of time, everything dissipated with the wind, and the entire space disappeared together with it. Bang! There was a sound that sounded like someone was hit by a stick, and the sound of space collapsing sounded in their minds. Yun Nuoxing and the others suddenly widened their eyes, and a light that came out of nowhere fell into their eyes. In front of them was a huge spiral staircase, and in the space beside them, a huge black transparent sphere was suspended in the air, motionless. The shining starlight inside, it represented a huge light cluster of worlds. You guys finally came back to your senses. A voice made Yun Nuoxing, Hui, and young Master Shun turn their heads abruptly. They saw Yao Guang suddenly let out a sigh of relief and grabbed Yun Nuoxing's arm, shaking it continuously. You guys have been in a daze for 4 hours. I talked to you guys, and you guys didn't react at all when I touched you. I thought you guys were silent. You almost scared me to death. Yun Nuoxing and the others. What happened just now was just an illusion, or was it in another space of consciousness? Yun Nuoxing checked the condition of his body. There was no backlash, but the girls in the spiritual world were so tired that they were paralyzed on the ground. However, they were in excellent condition. It seemed that it wasn't all an illusion. He suddenly turned his head and looked at the deepest part of the hall. A black throne appeared in his sight, and at the same time, a black demonic figure sitting on the throne appeared. However, this time, there were floating clusters of light in the space beside the figure. The clusters of light were all figures who had lost their life force. They were the high-tier, heavenly gods of origin. Illusion, but it's also real enough. Lord Foam, I told you that the soul and perception are the key. Jing Yuanji's voice suddenly rang in his ears. A warm wind blew past his ears, and Yun Nuoxing's body went numb. His hands trembled, and he almost threw her to the ground. Chapter 1447. You're awake. Yun Nuoxing felt the movement on his back and gently put down the girl who had been lying on his back for a long time. He was also stunned when he did this, because he had already thrown Jing Yuanji to Yao Guang when they started fighting. It seemed that they had already fallen into another space before that. Perhaps they had already been sucked in when they first came down. Lord Feng, we're back. Jing Yuanji stood on the throne and nodded at Yun Nuoxing with a smile on her pretty face. No, I'm still in a daze. Who can explain to me what happened? Hui scratched his head in confusion. He looked at the guy sitting on the throne from the corner of his eye. It did not seem to have any intention of moving now, and, judging from its energy reaction, he could feel that it was very weak. It was still lively and ready to sink the 8 elements realm with them at any time, but now it was so weak. It was like a frail old man. Jing Yuanji shrugged and quickly explained the matter in her soul. After listening, Yin Nuoxing let out a long "oh." If that's the case, it means that you are in the subconscious space, and the place where Hui and I fought was also in the space of consciousness. However, that was the main space of consciousness. No wonder it was invincible and so resistant to beatings. I didn't even see a scratch on it after a long time. Hui smiled bitterly. It was not just resistant to beatings. It was equivalent to being invincible in a non-order plane. He had exerted all his power and still could not touch it. In the main space of consciousness, it should be in a state of perfection comparable to its own. Judging from that energy, it should be at least, I'm not sure, but it should be in the Yuanshi realm. The lower limit is between the beginner and the middle level, but who knows if it has a hidden card. Yin Nuoxing shook his head helplessly. Even if he unleashed one, 6 billion times the energy, he probably would not be able to cause any damage to the demonic shadow. He would not be able to cause any damage to it in the space of its consciousness. The difference in strength was really too great. It was as far as the entire primordial realm, unless he once again sacrificed his divinity carrier. But he no longer had that. Only the last perfect release of the origin energy had made the demonic shadow a little interested. Young Master Shin saw the three of them communicating with their eyes. He scratched his head and said, "The demon shadow is the creator of our race. It may be far more powerful than you think. It is in existence in the same period as the origin great deity." Visible sweat quickly appeared on the faces of Yin Nuoxing and the other two. Drops of sweat kept dripping down. They had never felt such panic in their hearts before. Of course, they had guessed this result. After all, that energy and rule that was close to the peak of the non-order plane was almost equivalent to the origin energy. It was not surprising that it was a life in the same period as the origin heavenly deity. To be honest, they were about to die of surprise. Yin Nuoxing opened his mouth and said something vague. Jing Yuanji and Hui were stunned. They did not hear clearly and did not ask. Looking at his frown and pondering, he was probably working on a puzzle. Let's not talk about this first. The guy is still sitting up there. Let's deal with it first. Hui pointed at the demon shadow on the throne at the end of the stairs. Yin Nuoxing heard and nodded. This was indeed not the place to talk. It was better to deal with the matter here first. Once again, the five of them stepped onto the flight of stairs, silently taking step by step. Yin Nuoxing and the others raised their heads to look at the group of distorted Empyrean gods hanging in midair, and they couldn't help but frown. When they stepped onto the second platform of the flight of stairs, the guy on the throne spoke again, his voice also directly transmitted into their minds. "I have witnessed the destruction of the void and the primordial realm. Chaos should have come after they disappeared, and order should have returned to silence forever. However, the eternal chaos did not come. It seemed that this void was unwilling to remain silent and empty. It once again created order, igniting an endless sea of sparks in the void. Why? They have long been silent. The order of this world should also be silent forever, falling into endless darkness. But why?" Yin Nuoxing paused slightly. He looked up at it and found that it was also looking at him. After a moment, he continued to raise his foot. "What is the significance of the origin heavenly deity to the order of the void?" "The origin heavenly deity? Oh, you were talking about them. They are the pinnacle of order, the pinnacle of order in the eight elements realm. They are the embodiment of order, the creator of order. They are existences that are the complete opposite of me." The voice of the demon echoed directly in their minds, allowing them to understand the meaning of its words. Yin Nuoxing nodded slightly. This explanation was not much different from what they knew. However, even this guy who was not from the plane of order felt that something was wrong. Could there be another explanation? That's right, another conclusion and explanation that he came up with himself? Perhaps the truth was actually that simple? But what does this have to do with the origin heavenly deity? The existence of the void is only because it exists here. The world simply exists in the void. Everyone, mortals, ordinary life forms, cultivators, gods, deities, and even you're just adding some definitions to them. In fact, they simply exist there. The origin heavenly deity is the embodiment of order. The origin heavenly deity can also create order. But the existence of the void. Yin Nuoxing's mouth twitched. He took a deep breath and said seriously, "To put it bluntly, what does the existence of the void have to do with them? It is just the void itself that exists here. The void itself wants to create a world with order. The origin heavenly deity is just a group of bitter watchers, observers, and maintenance workers in this vast and endless world of order. Even though they stand above the void and above the primordial realm, as long as they do not want to replace the void and the primordial realm, they are not completely tied to the void and the primordial realm." Hui and Jing Yuanji stared blankly at Yin Nuoxing. Their hearts were also in turmoil because of his words. It was indeed blasphemous, but it did seem to be the case. The origin heavenly deity never wanted to replace the void or do anything to it. Hui knew this. The fragments at the bottom of the realm of the gods. No, they were just fragments. Well, he was not sure if they had those thoughts or actions. The origin heavenly deity and the others have the ability to do this. As you said, they're the embodiment of order and stand at the peak of order. So, what is wrong with them replacing the world of order? If they wanted to do so, even if the void and the primordial realm went through destruction once, or even more times, they would still leave an indelible mark here. But they did not. Yin Nuoxing and the others stood in front of the demon shadow and raised their heads to look at this peerless great demon. Even though they could feel that it was already very weak, even though they could feel that its energy was leaking out and that it could not maintain its form, they could still feel the heart-palpitating feeling coming from its body. However, this time, it was definitely not an invincible existence. Until now, they still did not know what this demonic shadow was. It just said that it was an existence that was completely opposite to the origin heavenly deity. The origin heavenly deity was the creator of order. Then, it was the creator of non-order? What a wonderful way of putting it. Perhaps this is how it should be. Perhaps, as you said, what should be done is to replace and change the order of the void, and not. No, yes, that's right. Even if we want to do this, we still need to eradicate them. No, maybe we don't need to. Maybe we just need a piece of the void. Yes, yes. The demonic shadow rumbled and said something. Yin Nuoxing and the others were confused and could not understand the meaning of this sentence for a while. Yin Nuoxing paid attention to another sentence. When it said eradicate them, could it be referring to the origin heavenly deity? Did this guy kill them? It sounded like a fantasy story. Moreover, during the battle at dusk, she did not see any existence like this demonic shadow. There was only another group of humanoid figures, the primeval heavenly deities, and Yin Nuoxing was stunned. There was also a blurry black fog in the image. Right behind the person holding the spear, there was a black fog that was as vast as the sea. It was crazier and more destructive than the death fog of the abyss. Could that be? What was your identity during the fall of the origin heavenly deity? Yin Nuoxing suddenly asked. Me? A participant in the battle. But I'm already dead. The demonic shadow said without hesitation. It did not seem to care who knew about this matter. I died in their hands. Died? Yin Nuoxing was stunned. What did it mean to appear here, even after death? Then why are you sealed here? Here? No, I'm not here. I'm here. It's just that. All right, I feel it. The demonic shadow's attention suddenly fell on young Master Shun. It's the same as the group of people who broke in earlier. They have a part of my aura. So that's how it is, a life that was indirectly created by my power. That's how I appeared here. Interesting. Even the life in this world is the same. So, I can create life too. The demonic shadow suddenly stood up and stepped over Yin Nuoxing and the others. It slowly walked towards the huge sphere that symbolized the void. The rumbling voice sounded again. Inheritor of the origin, you are searching for some dusty past and truth. You are very interesting and courageous. Then, seize this courage. Before you feel despair, before you chase to the end of despair, slowly walk down this path. This void will eventually fall into endless chaos. Inheritor, I look forward to the next time we meet. He, the demonic shadow, stood in front of the void. Its body dissipated bit by bit as it spoke. It disappeared into thin air like a cloud. After it disappeared, the deity of the distorted clan that was hanging in the sky also fell to the ground. Its body began to rapidly dissipate into pure energy and merged into a huge vision. The dark energy that existed in this space also abruptly disappeared like the ebbing tide. It still talks so much before it dies. We could not help but roll his eyes. It was probably besieged and sealed before we came in. Then, Jing Yuanji dismantled its consciousness core. Plus, Feng and I fought with it in the main consciousness space to consume its energy. No matter how strange it is, it should be dead now. And it's a guy who likes to talk to himself. Jing Yuanji nodded. Suddenly, she saw Yin Nuoxing looking over. She blushed and hurriedly waved her hand. Ah, I didn't mean to talk about Lord Feng. I was talking about it. Yin Nuoxing reached out and patted Jing Yuanji's head. She looked at the space where the vision burst out and let out a long sigh of relief. Anyway, this matter has come to an end, but there are still a lot of questions left. After solving some of the puzzles, there will be more and more puzzles. If we keep chasing, sooner or later we will be doomed because we unearth something terrible buried deep in time. Chasing to the end of despair. Then I'll see the truth at the end of despair if that day comes. In general, they came here to understand some things and obtained another piece of the puzzle. They could connect many things together one by one. As for the many relationships in between, they would have to rack their brains and scratch their heads to connect the dots. After leaving the temple, they found the woman in green and Mr. Spector's group not far away. When they saw Yin Nuoxing and the others return, they were very excited and rushed over. Captain, the energy of the monsters in the heavenly wasteland and this entire area is gradually declining. If there are no accidents, this trend of decline may continue. The blonde youth shouted at Yao Guang excitedly. The energy reaction is declining. That a good thing? Yes, it's a good thing. Yao Guang still hadn't recovered from what Yin Nuoxing and the others told him. He was still in a daze at this moment. When he heard what they said, he just casually responded and nodded. How's the northern temple? Mr. Spector looked at Yin Nuoxing and the others and asked expectantly. The northern temple? It's still the northern temple, but it has lost its original function. Yin Nuoxing glanced behind them. The temple on the sea had disappeared again. Before they came out, they had completely demolished the temple. It was probably useless now. The core of the temple was also dead, or maybe it was dead. In any case, it had disappeared here. The temple had lost its original function. Yao Guang casually dealt with his team members. After a while, he recovered and staggered in front of Yin Nuoxing. He pulled his shoulder and said, "It's over? It's really over?" Yes, it's really over. You've already confirmed it with me 3 times. Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly and patted Yao Guang's head. When he saw the puzzled and confused expression on everyone's face, he sighed and decided to say it again. There's a huge monster lurking in the northern temple. That monster existed at the same time as this world. In other words, it has already existed since the beginning of the world. The monsters are also a dangerous race because of it. Now it's all good. The source has been eliminated. There will be no more heavenly wasteland, no more mountains and seas, and no more monsters gathering there. This world is safe, and there won't be any factors that will affect this world. Well, it took less than a minute to fabricate this explanation. They had no way to find out the reason behind it, and there was no way for them to delve into it. Moreover, for these creatures who lived in an abyss of suffering, compared to finding out the source, origin, and why, a sentence like "it's over" was far more relaxing and reassuring. Yin Nuoxing was a little glad that the battle back then was actually in the main consciousness space. They thought that Yao Guang existed there, and the little girl did not witness the earth-shattering battle that could blow up the primordial realm. This also saved him some time to explain. Young Master Shun looked at the end of the ocean and stretched his arms. When he saw Hui walking over, he could not help but ask, "Don't we need to get rid of that temple?" "It's okay. You saw it just now. We've completely dismantled it and removed all the energy inside. There won't be anything bad left. Just let it stay there. Every year, it will be caught and thrown around by the chasm of laws. Just treat it as some conceptual belief left for the creatures of this world. This kind of legendary thing will not be easily erased." Hui grinned. "Even what we talked about today, Yao Guang and the others will not casually talk about it. Do you believe me? There are too many things involved. It's like if one day someone suddenly tells me in my face that the origin of my race is actually from another source. Before I calm down, I might spit at the guy who talked nonsense with me, or beat him up, and then be beaten up again." Young Master Shun smiled and nodded to show that he understood. Then his expression became slightly serious. "Then what should we do with this world? Just leave it here. There's no other way." "Well, wait a minute. Let's see what Feng decides. I actually want to take it away, but it might take some effort." We held the back of his head with both hands. After all, this world was accidentally created by that demon because his own energy kept leaking out. It's a world that can still be considered orderly. It's amazing, isn't it? A guy who stands at the top of the non-orderly level unconsciously created a world that is close to order. It is indeed amazing. Young Master Shun nodded. The two stood there and watched for a while. Suddenly, young Master Shun scratched his head. "By the way, what should we do later? The time in the graveyard of gods and demons is much faster than the outside world. Someone will come in later and find out about this world." Hui was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, he slapped his head. "Oh, F***CK. So there's still one more thing. Phone, come here. We need to talk about cleaning the ***. Yin Nuoxing, who was talking to Yao Guang and the others, turned her head and smiled at them. Then, she walked to Hui and the others. After listening to them talk about things clearly, she showed a thoughtful look and nodded. "This world, I have an idea. I just came up with it 10 seconds ago," Yin Nuoxing said while snapping her fingers. "I've observed this world for a while. It's still a world of order. If that's the case, we can move out and not stay here. Then, we can leave another space here. UNG, now save your energy and prepare to create a space. We'll go in and decorate it later." Jing Yuanji tilted her head and said, "Oh." Then, she began to save her energy. Yin Nuoxing continued, "Do the people in your world have a very specific and accurate view of the graveyard of gods and demons? Or do they have any direct records?" Young Master Shin thought for a moment and shook his head. "There are only very vague records. It's difficult to restore anything based on those things. So, it's safe to say that everyone's impression of the graveyard of gods and demons is very vague. After all, not many of our race's elites are stationed in this banished world. Even if they appear, they will only stay for a short time. Or like this time, when the graveyard of gods and demons appears, they will send people here together with the internal enforcers to repair the seal." Yin Nuoxing said, "It's just a prison. Those internal enforcers are just jailers." Hearing this, young Master Shin nodded. It was indeed so. "Then let's do it this way. Decorate this world. Throw in all those big scenes and big explosions. Let the disasters of this space, from the moment of the creation of the world to the moment of the extinction of all things, play out according to the rhythm of a battle song. Set up the rules randomly. One moment it's normal, the next it's abnormal. Mix in the energy of that demonic shadow so that they can't distinguish the real from the fake. Make it so that they doubt their lives from the moment they come in." Hui and the others, Jing Yuanji's hands trembled. With a sad face, she said that, "Master Feng, I can't do something so sophisticated. You just have to create a chaotic space of rules. Leave the rest to me." Yin Nuoxing patted her on the shoulder. Suddenly, a devilish smile appeared on his face. "I still have a lot of things that I want to try." That demonic expression, coupled with the low pressure he exuded, caused everyone to tremble uncontrollably. This fellow was simply... Why did he look like a peerless scenery in the mortal world when he was normal? Once he was abnormal. TSK. He didn't look like a human at all. Chapter 1448. There weren't too many restrictions on the return journey. Mr. Ghost and the others expressed that they were fine, and Yin Nuashing lifted them up with ease. Everyone took a deep breath, and in the next moment, the entire world turned into a blurry line. Their facial muscles, hair, and clothes were all flung behind them. The journey that took more than half a month was shortened to only about 10 minutes. When they landed outside the nearest city, everyone immediately collapsed on the ground and retched. They couldn't wait to throw up their stomachs and lungs. Yin Nuashing saw everyone's uncomfortable expression and suddenly remembered that this group of people only had the physique of ordinary people. Sigh, I forgot to activate the barriers set by the rules. Hui pouted and said, What do you mean you forgot? You're just trying to torture them. Yin Nuashing pretended not to hear anything and walked to the side. She pulled Yao Guang and said, Stop vomiting. Come with me. I have something for you to do. Ugh. Yao Guang was still fighting with his stomach for control of his body. Now that he was pulled back, he was stunned. It's something related to your world. There are some things I need you to know, and I need your help with. Yao Guang nodded in confusion. He still chose to listen to what he understood and stood up shakily. He wiped the corner of his mouth and asked, But why me? More interaction, more eye candy. That's all. Yin Nuashing snapped her fingers and said. Yao Guang's feet slipped, and he almost sat down again. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. This reason was really practical. We've returned to the order zone. You guys can go on your own from now on. We still have some follow-up matters to deal with. Lend me your team leader. Yin Nuashing turned around and said to everyone. Her last sentence was directed at the golden-haired young man. After she finished speaking, she pulled him and flew into the sky without waiting for anyone to react, disappearing from sight. The golden-haired young man wanted to say something, but he couldn't help but blush. Borrow him? How to use him? Yin Nuashing and the others followed the concept layer of this world and found the edge of it. Then they leaped out of the concept layer of this world and entered the void of this level. Turning around, they saw a transparent light sphere that was thousands of meters in size behind them. The light sphere contained an entire world. The graveyard of gods and demons was an existence similar to a small world. If one were to search the void, they would only be able to find the world light of the outside world. For a small world that existed out of thin air and did not exist within a certain object, one would have to leave its boundary through the concept layer of laws to find it. Of course, it was also possible to find it in the concept layer of laws of the outside world, but it would be very troublesome. Finding a unique sea region in the ocean was much more difficult than coming out of that sea region to find it. Anyway, that's the gist of it. There's a lot more to it, blah, blah, blah. As soon as Yin Nuashing opened her mouth, she dealt a serious blow to the spirit of the 100,000 girls. Looking at the dispirited look in the girl's eyes, her spirit trembling, and her soul shivering, Hui and the others knew that this girl's worldview had been shattered, and there was no way to fix it. Cough, cough. In short, seeing Yao Guang's dizzy appearance, Yin Nuashing coughed awkwardly. With a slap, she had shattered the worldview that Yao Guang relied on for survival into the yellow sands of time. The fact that this girl could still say why, was already a manifestation of her strong spirit. If it were someone else, they would have pressed their head against the wall and smashed it. In short, it's not good to leave this world, which is your world here. We are preparing to pack up and move you. Yao Guang nodded with two bloodshot eyes. After moving, we will arrange a good place for you that will not be affected by the outside world, but in summary, we don't have the time nor the position to intervene in the affairs of your world. However, it's hard to guarantee that there won't be other situations that I don't know about when you suddenly move to a new place. So, I need a helper to look after this world. So this task is entrusted to you. Yin Nuashing patted Yao Guang's head and nodded. What did you just say? Yao Guang, who was in a daze, was sent flying by his own slap. His beautiful eyes widened as he stared at Yin Nuashing in disbelief. Yin Nuashing danced with joy. In other words, from the beginning of the world, blah, blah, blah. Stop, stop, stop. I understand all that. Pick what you understand. Yao Guang's face was covered in sweat as he stopped Yin Nuashing's lecture. He hurriedly wiped the sweat off his face. In other words, you want me to manage this world? Supervise, observe, and see if there are any abnormalities. This is your world. You have to do your best to manage it. Yin Nuashing nodded and patted him on the shoulder. Well, don't worry. It's not difficult. If there are any big problems, I have left a seed in your soul. If you encounter something that you can't solve, tell us. Yao Guang followed his instructions and circled around his soul. When she saw his soul seed, the two tried to touch it. After confirming that there was no problem, she heaved a sigh of relief. Then, she asked carefully, there won't really be any problems, right? Yin Nuashing shook his head. I can't say for sure. Your world is very special. It needs to be adjusted to the rules that are suitable for the survival of this primordial realm. In the future, there will be many huge changes in your world. The world will change dramatically, the energy will change dramatically, and many more. The world map that you rely on for survival may be overturned. Also, whether you can see the boundary of this world or not, it will also expand rapidly. The changes in the world are inevitable. What you have to be careful of are the incidental things. Things like jumping off buildings, committing suicide, spreading rumors, stirring up trouble, reactionary, anti-human. These things are necessary experiences for you to adapt to the changes in the world in the future. Therefore, we will not intervene, unless the scale of the matter is really big, to the point where it can't be resolved. Only then will I come out to help you. Otherwise, it will be up to you to overcome the difficulties yourself, Yin Nuashing said. Why does it sound like it's not a good thing? Will so many serious things really happen? Yao Guang muttered suspiciously, but she still remembered these words in her heart. Yin Nuashing glanced at her. After all, this world is too special. From its order, creator, and the rules that it follows now, there are many abnormalities. However, these abnormalities are usually not problems. This time, we suddenly have to carry out a big move. It's hard to guarantee that there won't be any big problems. That's why we asked you, a native, to help take care of it. Okay. Yao Guang nodded. Suddenly, she asked, what's the outside world like? It's a little stronger than your world, a little bigger, and the life forms there are also a little stronger than yours. Everyone has their own jobs, their own lives, and their own troubles or disasters that they have to face. Those are all part of every world. Although it was as good as not saying anything, this was the best explanation that he could think of for someone who did not have any concept of the outside world. It was more intuitive. Oh, Mei Mao's eyes flickered as if she was imagining something. I thought that only our world would have such a demonic wave. The other worlds are very peaceful. The void is never peaceful forever. Even if it is very peaceful right now, no one knows what will happen in the next second. As for the situation of your world, I have actually seen many worlds that are similar to yours. Although they're not facing the mana tide, their worlds are occupied by monsters that are millions of times more powerful than the monsters you face. Every few thousand years, there would be an outbreak of chaos. When that happens, those monsters would flatten everything on the land. The lives of those worlds have stopped this disaster time and time again, and have been holding on tenaciously for tens of millions of years. He was talking about the spirit condensation continent. So far, the spirit condensation continent was the most heroic world he had ever seen. Although the other worlds in the void had their own difficulties and disasters, he had never seen a world that had a disaster on the level of the spirit condensation continent. It was a disaster that could make a group of Empyrean gods kill each other. After all, it was a world created by the control of a distorted race. It was different from the other origin worlds. Yao Guang, although it sounds scary, I still want to go and take a look. Ahaha, with your small body, I am afraid you will be killed instantly if you go there. Yin Nuashing laughed and patted Yao Guang's head. When she saw her pouting, she patted her again. That world became like that due to certain reasons. But now that those problems have been solved, you will not see the monsters that filled the world. Oh, Yao Guang blinked and smiled. That's good. No one likes to live under the surveillance of disasters every day, being driven forward by disasters until you are forced to the end, right? Yin Nuashing nodded. You won't have the chance to see those worlds, but if you want to come to our world to take a look, well, wait for the time when you have adapted to the great changes in the world. After a period of time, you might be able to come to our world to take a look. How long is a while? A few decades, a few million years, or even tens of millions of years. Seeing Yao Guang's shocked expression, Yin Nuashing smiled helplessly. You're too weak. You can't adapt to the rules of survival in our world, so I will not take the initiative to guide you to our world. You will have to wait until you can go to that vast and boundless world. At that time, if you want to go and see and play, I will bring you there when you are free. Yao Guang shrunk his neck and couldn't help but mutter, "Can you stop patting my head? I'm not a child anymore. Cough, cough. It's convenient. Also, with your real age of around 20 years old, you are just a small child to me. TSK, forget it. Let's not talk about this." Yin Nuashing's face turned green as she spoke. She couldn't help but sigh and shake her head. Yao Guang was slightly stunned. When he heard the sigh, he couldn't help but turn around. In the end, he saw Hui and the other two shaking their heads and sighing. The atmosphere suddenly felt like it had gone through the vicissitudes of life. After explaining a lot of precautions, Yin Nuashing and Jing Yuanji began to replace the world in front of them. The original graveyard of gods and devils became a fist-sized ball that he grabbed. Jing Yuanji took advantage of the fact that this space had not closed and stuffed it into another space that was filled with endless chaotic laws. This is our world. Why did it shrink to such a small size? Yao Guang bent down and leaned closer to the ball to look inside. Countless colors of curiosity flickered in his eyes. This is very complicated to explain. If you feel that your worldview has been restored, I can still break it for you. Cough, cough, then I will have to split the world. Stop, stop, stop. Let me recover after some time. Yao Guang immediately jumped back as if he had been electrocuted. His face was full of lingering fear. When he saw that Yin Nuashing was joking and did not intend to continue talking, he showed an expression of surviving a disaster. On the other hand, Jing Yuanji, Hui, and young Master Shun had already followed Yun Nua's instructions to cause trouble in that space and set up traps. They did not forget to throw in a fake northern temple. The latter's fingers itched to go over and through in the elements of nirvana, creating a terrifying area that was countless times more dangerous than hell. Holding the ball that represented his world tightly in his hand, he saw Yin Nuashing and the others with dark faces and low laughter, like a group of demons preparing some malicious gifts for mortals. Just looking at them made him feel weak in the knees. After teaching Yao Guang to establish a connection with the world of the graveyard of gods and devils, Yin Nuashing sent the little girl back to the world. After walking around for a while, she felt that there was nothing wrong and was about to leave. Wait a minute. Yao Guang grabbed Yin Nuashing. You haven't told me your name yet. Oh yes. Yin Nuashing suddenly realized that he had not mentioned anything about himself along the way. After all, it did not seem to be important in this world. Feng Ling, what's wrong? Yao Guang shook his head. Nothing. You have something else to do. Then I won't keep you. Yin Nuashing scratched his head, patted the little girl's head, and turned to leave. He did have something to do at the moment. As for other things, there would be plenty of time to talk about it in the future. Watching Yin Nuashing leave, Yao Guang pressed his hair and suddenly laughed softly. Feng Ling, the outside world. She raised her head and let out a long breath. There might be a great change in the world after a while. It seemed that she needed to prepare in advance. After putting the world of the graveyard of gods and demons into his pocket, he changed the problem of the time interval between the two worlds. After making all the adjustments, Yin Nuashing put down the main body of the world and slipped away through a teleportation circle left in the void. In this dark and empty world, there was only a space filled with chaotic and violent energy left. In the wilderness, quite a distance away from the Moon Lake, As soon as Yin Nuoxing's figure appeared, Hui and Jing Yuanji came out from the side. They looked at each other, signaled each other with their eyes, and went into the distance. Hundreds of miles away from the Moon Lake, Yin Nuoxing and Hui went into a hidden space. Young Master Shun and the woman in green were tidying up a newly built pavilion. When they saw them come in, they greeted them. "Oh, you're done. I thought you'd take longer." Just sent the girl back and walked around twice. It didn't take much effort. Yin Nuoxing saw that there were no tables and chairs in the pavilion. There was only an empty space. After thinking for a while, she took out a chair from the pendant and sat down. Hui and Jing Yuanji did the same. Young Master Shen also took out a table and chair. The woman in green quickly made tea and put it on the table. "Ah, we have to talk again. I feel tired when I just came out of that world. How about we talk another day?" Hui suddenly stretched lazily and sighed. "Yin Nuoxing, do you want to rest for a while?" I'm just saying, asterisk cough cough asterisk, if you have something to say, just say it. Right now, this world's attention is completely attracted by another matter. It's time to do something. Huey's face instantly turned serious as he drank a cup of tea and said seriously, "Then start from the beginning." Young Master Shen smiled and nodded. He took a sip of tea to moisten his throat. After a moment of silence, he slowly opened his mouth. "The earliest records of our race have become very vague. Only a few words about the calamity back then have been passed down. At the time, our race was just an ordinary world that lived peacefully in a corner. That demonic shadow descended from the void and was heavily injured. Its crumbling energy and presence turned into a black rain that poured over our world. Everyone went mad, turned into lunatics by that power that was near the peak of order. We don't know the process in between, nor do we know what exactly happened. We only know that a very small number of people survived that distortion of the laws and survived with great difficulty. And that was already after the void turbulence. Our race had managed to survive the turbulence of the void and left behind a few seeds. Over the course of several eras, following the generation after generation, the influence of the dark shadow on us had gradually weakened. There was a huge gap between the first generation of distorted individuals and the current us that was hard to cross in terms of order. They had evolved over a long period of time, becoming distorted individuals that had been completely corrupted by the dark shadow's energy. Meanwhile, our order, nature had gradually become more normal. Even so, there was still a difference between us and the life forms of order. Yin Nuoxing thought for a moment and said, "It's a little different from what I thought, but it's almost the same. Your creator should have existed in the previous era, which was 11 years ago. I don't know what it is. It probably crossed the distance and distorted your original normal race through energy or rules. Logically speaking, this distortion should have become more and more intense until you completely fall into a non-order level. I don't know why this process was forcefully stopped and even showed part of the order after 11 years. We don't know about this either." Young Master Shun shook his head in confusion. His finger was drawing circles on the table unconsciously. One of the cores of this world is the graveyard of gods and demons. Many years ago, because of the graveyard of gods and demons, this world was banished from the core of our race. That demonic shadow was the creator of our race. A few years ago, we suddenly discovered that its influence on our race was getting stronger and stronger. This was something that no one had expected. Very soon, under the influence of the demonic shadow, a completely transformed, crazy individual was born among us. Just like the first few seeds that had turned into crazy individuals, it was only then that we realized the seriousness of the problem and banished this world as a whole. Wait a minute, isn't this a little strange? That demonic shadow fell into your world and was then imprisoned by your race. Yin Nuoxing said and shook her head. That's not right. You shouldn't have this kind of power back then. Young Master Shen nodded. When the disaster broke out back then, our race could only run for their lives. That world had also been torn into pieces by its power. The only thing we can be sure of is that we absolutely couldn't do anything to it back then. The energy that gushed out from its wound affected our entire race. Then the demonic shadow that exists here, as it said, is just a shadow. Its real body is in another place. Then how did it find us? Yin Nuashing frowned. Could it be because of its aura? That. Young Master Shin paused for a moment. After hesitating for a while, he slowly said, "The demonic shadow in the graveyard of gods and demons was born from the hearts of our people a few years ago. It's a very strange scene. That night, it suddenly appeared in our main world." Well, that's what it said, but I don't know the specific process. I only heard that it was born from the heart. When that demonic shadow was born, it didn't have any power. Then, someone said that since it was born from the heart, there shouldn't be any problems. So, they casually found a hole and sealed it. Who knew that it would have such a strange change because of its appearance? Moreover, the people who lived on that planet at that time had an irreversible change. Even that world had become strange, so they had no choice but to exile that world. Hui was stunned. So the place we are now is actually your original main world? Young Master Shin nodded. Jing Yuanji was a little puzzled. Why did you exile and seal it? I didn't hear any special purpose from what you said just now. But judging from what your people are doing now, I don't think it's that simple. In the beginning, we still hoped that we could return to order. Even now, there are still many people who want to return to order. Because of this, there are many ways to deal with it, hoping to end this 1,000-year nightmare and eternal curse. That's why, when the demon shadow appeared and affected the lives of an entire world and kicked us far away from our path of return, some people couldn't hold on any longer. Yin Nuashing continued young Master Shun's words. Are they willing to go to the absolute non-order side and give up? Young Master Shin nodded. The great executor of my people is like that. Then what does this have to do with the divine realm? I don't know. I don't know what the great executor and the others are thinking and doing. After all, I was exiled a long time ago. I have been wandering between many worlds, running away. Young Master Shin smiled bitterly and shook his head. Huey's interest was piqued. Exiled? Because of opposing views? You're closer to the order side? Young Master Shin nodded. That's why I was thrown out. After all, I'm still a very big threat to the non-order side. After all, I'm still a former young master. Yin Nuashing and the others spat out the tea in their mouths. The guy who had been hanging out with them for a month was actually the former young master of the distorted clan, and just now, he was plotting with them how to deal with their own people. Good Lord, this sounded too exciting. It was as if they were destroying their own clan. Chapter 1449. Most of the remaining 20 to 30% of the living beings were swept into another disaster that was even more terrifying. Most of them did not make it through. In the end, the remaining people forced themselves to escape from the world they originally lived in. They drifted in the void until countless years later when they once again found a peaceful place where the fire's seed could continue. However, the people who had allowed the fire seed to continue had now become another kind of life form that was neither human nor ghost. They were not accepted by order. They had reached a different point in the non-order and could no longer turn back. Yin Nuashing had figured out the origin story of the Twisted Race and understood the current situation. He did not feel sorry for them. They were the enemy in the first place. Knowing a little about the enemy's past was just to supplement some information. He had not sympathized with them. Such things had happened too often in the void. It could be said that under the same void, from the beginning of the misty period to the later period when they began to explore the void, their lives had always been suspended in mid-air. Life and death were up to fate. Encountering natural and man-made disasters on the great stage of the void, it was a skill to survive. If not, they could only sigh about fate. Not convinced? If not, then break the barrier of fate and enter the struggle of fate on another level until they finally snatch their own fate back from the suspended void. After all, fate itself was very fair when it was not changed by something on a higher level. It did not care about anything after that except for the dice that was thrown in the beginning. That's the gist of the story. Young Master Shun took a sip of tea and sighed. There must be a lot of things that happened in between. Most of them were not recorded. The carriers that still have records can hardly convey them. Living in exile in the void, dragging out an ignoble existence, lingering at death's door. In the end, they crossed over to an unknown place to find shelter. It was too long. Even if he sat here with a pot of reincarnation in his mouth, he might not be able to finish recounting the stories of the 10 to 20% of the population of the various races who had fled and wandered in the void. Even if he sat here with a pot of reincarnation and repeated it over and over again, he might not be able to finish recounting everything in a year. As for how they became the villains of the whole race, oh no. According to young Master Shun, it should be 5% of the people who became villains. The latter one, 5%, included some innocent onlookers and some little kids who had not yet grown up. In short, they were the ones who did not have much influence and did not have much combat power. After that, Yin Nuoxing pondered for a while. It seemed to be no different from the villains of the whole race. Then, to put it simply, what's your situation? What's the matter with being exiled? Yin Nuoxing clapped his hands and asked young Master Shun. Young Master Shun took a sip of tea and raised his head to look at him. It seemed that he had expected this and had prepared his words. I was exiled from this race 2 years ago. As for the reason, I've just told you. His finger slowly drew circles on the table. His eyes were filled with grief and resentment that could not be erased even after 2 eras. In the middle, I skimmed through some unimportant things that you probably don't want to know. In a word, my family was executed. I ran away like a stray dog. You're the young master. Then, is your father the patriarch or some kind of high-ranking person? Yin Nuoxing was not surprised by the answer. Because your family was closer to the order, but the others did not think so. You were isolated and helpless, so you were excluded? My father was the great executor of the previous generation, the patriarch you mentioned. Young Master Shin nodded to confirm. The situation is, as you said. As for the current great executor, he is the one who planned to deal with my father. His name is Chong Kong. Young Master Shun was stunned for a moment. He looked at young Master Shun with slight astonishment. However, when he thought about the fact that young Master Shun was an existence that stood at the pinnacle of order, he did not feel too surprised. I have never thought that something like this would happen. The last time my memory was still fresh was when I was at home. In the blink of an eye, I was betrayed by my family and friends, and the world was shattered. In order to survive, I kept on running until I reached the edge of the territory of my race. This is it. I have been hiding here for a long time, but staying here will not help me in any way. I have also gone out and wandered for a very long time, until I came back here again. Revenge. Young Master Shun could not help but smile bitterly when he heard these 2 words. He knew that mentioning these 2 words was like hitting a rock with an egg. He was overestimating himself. I can't do it alone, so I found a rest. The last remaining group of people are on my side at the moment. However, they only live at the border of our clan. There is no way for them to infiltrate the core of our clan. For us, there is only twisted madness and a sorrowful wish left behind. Almost the entire clan has fallen into madness for that goal. What? They want to climb to the top of the non-order? Yin Nuoxing took a sip of tea. Young Master Shun shook his head. For our descendants, order and non-order have been neutralized to this extent. It is quite difficult to continue to go further in the non-order level, and they don't want to return to order. So, they plan to replace the order themselves. Yin Nuoxing and the other 2 spat out a mouthful of tea in unison. Replace. The order? Hui mumbled, then lowered his head and held his stomach. He could not help but laugh out loud. Guy Li Hui slapped Hui to indicate that there were still people here. Yin Nuoxing shook her head helplessly. This idea was very clear and abnormal. Naive. It was fine that they stood at the non-order level, but they still wanted to replace the Order of the Void? It was normal for the heavenly god of origin to say this. If it were them, then forget it. Bigotry. Hard to understand. Young Master Shun smiled silently. He guessed that they would have such a reaction. In the beginning, when we were still walking back the path, there were actually no problems with our clan. It was until that demonic shadow appeared that everything changed. Chong Kong and the others seemed to have gone crazy. They thought that order had destroyed them, and the path of chaos was the only true truth in this world. Unfortunately, there were many people who were in the same situation as him. So when our family and two other senior law enforcers still wanted to return to order, they thought that we were attacked by the life form of order, and our souls were replaced, and we were. Anyway, it was all nonsense. You know what happened next? Then, you plan to take revenge? Yin Nuashing asked. At that time, I was only thinking about how to run and how to survive. Revenge was a thought that only came to me in recent years. Because I couldn't come into contact with them, I couldn't make any preparations. So now it's just a thought. I don't know what to do or what to do. Young Master Shin let out a long sigh and shook his head. After thinking about it, I could only come up with a plan by fighting my way in. But Yin Nuashing and the others fell silent. It was like asking a little guy who had just reached the origin realm to brave the god's realm alone. The first enemy he encountered was a high-level heavenly god of origin, and he chose to run away instead of fighting. Before he could steady himself, he turned around and saw two peak heavenly gods of origin who had come out for a stroll. He was so scared that he pissed his pants. Before he could run too far, he ran into the observer who was basking in the sun above the clouds. In the end, he was destroyed by the divine Tao because he woke the observer up. That was not a joke. In fact, although young Master Shin was not really alone, he could not do anything with this old, weak, sick, and disabled group of people. Yin Nuashing sighed and patted young Master Shin on the shoulder. It's too hard for you. Young Master Shin laughed dryly and scratched his head. Actually, when I recognized you guys, I thought that I had finally reached the most dangerous moment of my life. Hui tilted his head. Why? I still have a certain level of intelligence. Weren't you guys fighting with them? You guys were even looking for traces of my people in the void. I thought that one day, when I saw the scene of destruction, it would be the scene of you guys coming to my door with a fury that could burn the void. But in the end, young Master Shun laughed dryly. In the end, I saw the three of us appear in front of you. We chuckled, but it is indeed the most important expedition I have ever seen. The two divine professions of the gods are going on an expedition in person. No other world in the void can receive such treatment. Yin Nuashing thought for a moment. The main thing is that I find it troublesome. And right now, there's another more important thing to deal with. These *TTY things in the world of order still need to be dealt with as soon as possible. Young Master Shun understood. Then, please let me help you guys. I want revenge. You want to destroy my people. At least for now, it seems that we have the same goal. Wait until our goal is achieved, then you can deal with us. Deal with what? We looked at him with a strange gaze. That is, execution or something. Young Master Shin said in a low voice. He felt that it was a little strange for him to say these words. I have already mentally prepared myself, but at least I hope that this will be left for last. Why do you want to execute? Yin Nuashing tilted her head and looked at young Master Shun. Young Master Shun was stunned by what she said. The rest of you chose the order. You chose to be close to the order. Besides, if those things were not done by you guys and had nothing to do with you guys, why do you want to execute you? Looking at young Master Shun's dazed expression, Hui added, we did come here for the war, to get rid of the unstable elements in the world of order. But I'm referring to those guys who cause trouble. There are one or two such unstable elements in the realm of the gods occasionally. But I don't see us completely annihilating the entire realm of the gods. Enemies are enemies. But as long as there is no direct, unavoidable conflict or reason between you and me, there is no need to eliminate them. Do you think it is easy to kill so many people? Young Master Shun was a little confused by the two people's words. He understood what they were saying, and it was the best news for him. He stood up and solemnly cupped his hands to the two people. In that case, I thank you on behalf of them first. Let's talk about it when it is over. Yin Nuashing waved her hand. Everything has not started yet. It is too early to thank us. Young Master Shun slowly sat down. Suddenly, he scratched his head and laughed dryly. Actually, I wanted to go to the world of the gods to look for you guys. But I did not go because I did not have the right to. Now you have. Yin Nuashing shrugged. Let's talk about things here. Oh, there is nothing to talk about here. How much do you know about this world? like that bunch of exiles or something. In the soul, Yu suddenly sat up straight and could not help but chuckle. After waiting for so many days, finally they were going to talk about what they were going to do. The exiles are related to the planet under our feet. As for how much, young Master Shin frowned and shook his head helplessly. Sorry, there are too many secrets involved here. I can't infiltrate. I don't know what they're doing, but it should be something very important. Otherwise, there would not be so many people staying here. It has been 5 days since we came back from the graveyard of gods and demons. So there is still half a month left. Be more specific. What is going on with the exiles? Young Master Shun pondered for a moment, as if he was seriously thinking about something. After a while, he said, "The life in the exiles is the original life of this world. The kindling of my race found this suitable world. This newly born world has many natives who are relatively weak. After meeting the kindling of the first kindling, something must have happened. Maybe it went through a war or something else, and it took over the position of the natives of this world. Then, it ruled them all and divided them into different parts of the universe. Among the current life of my race, there are many who share the same bloodline as the natives of this world. But after this world was sealed and thrown out, they were thrown in together. The natives who are still alive today were driven into the exiles. Because the life force of my race is closely related to the demonic shadow, it is easy to leak when using our power to suppress the seal. So, they use their life force as the key to maintain the seal on this planet. One of the seals is the graveyard of gods and demons. The other seal is the one I told you about that I did not know. The life of this world is made up of 3 parts. 2 of them are mentioned above, and the other one is from the experimental worlds below. Yin Nuashing finished his sentence. Young Master Shin glanced at him and smiled bitterly. You know it. You should have come from there, right? Those experiments. Sigh, I'm not used to saying this. Those people were found from various worlds in the void. Some of them were found scattered and thrown into those experimental fields. Some of them simply moved the entire world here and underwent a powerful brainwashing and modification. As for the purpose, I think you should be able to see it. Yin Nuashing scratched his cheek. You should just say it. We have been guessing and touching here and there. We still don't know if what we know is correct. Young Master Shin thought about it and felt that it was reasonable. Then he said, in the beginning, this experiment has been around since 2 years ago. But it was not like this at that time. When my father was in power, we were looking for some celestial beings in the void whose signs of life had been completely extinguished but whose bodies were left behind. Most of them were celestial beings who died in battle, and their bodies were left behind accidentally. We used those bodies to supplement our own laws and energy, trying to find a way to balance it and let us return to order. Then, when Chankong took over, the experiment changed. He did not hesitate to plunder life in the void, but his purpose was the opposite. They wanted to study how to make our race's stable order continue to fall to the side of non-order. This is compatible with their other purpose of wanting to replace order. Yin Nuashing and Hui looked at each other. The former shrugged. You see, I really did not think of this. Young Master Shun was also stunned. Then what did you think it was before? It's also an answer related to order, but I thought that they wanted to use those lives to deduce something and use those lives for something, to create a kind of distorted life form with order attributes, and use it to do something to order. As Yin Nuashing spoke, he suddenly thought of something. However, some of these lives must have been consumed, right? Consumed? Consumed what? Young Master Shun was stunned. Yin Nuashing thought for a while and told him about the discovery of the pantheon in this world and the conjecture about it. After listening to it, young Master Shun's face became very serious. If that's the case, no, what you said might be the truth. They're getting crazier and crazier. Feng Ling, we can't use your items. Oh, Yin Nuashing curiously took out a scroll from the pendant and put it on the table. What if we use it? The rejection of order. If we use it, it will hiss. As young Master Shin spoke, he picked up a scroll on the table. As soon as he injected his own energy into it, a violent reaction of resistance came from the scroll. A burst of energy just burst out, making him lose control of the scroll. Young Master Shun shook his hand. See, this is it. Yin Nuashing took the scroll back and looked at it. It is indeed a very strong rejection. It seems to be the rejection of the rules and order of the Pantheon to you, similar to the innate rejection. Young Master Shun nodded. But those new life forms that are born now are not affected. Lend it to me. Yin Nuashing handed the scroll to young Master Shun. Young Master Shun passed it to the woman in green beside him. Xiao Miao, give it a try. The woman in green pursed her lips and nodded. She took the scroll and carefully injected her energy into it. This time, energy lines appeared on the scroll. The energy began to move according to the lines. However, the amount of energy was too little. It could not even open the scroll, let alone use it. Although the thing engraved in the scroll required much less energy than directly releasing its original body, it was still a huge amount for them. Yin Nuashing looked at the woman in green and said, "Oh, I didn't recognize her. I thought she was one of your people." After carefully handing the scroll to Yin Nuashing, the woman in green retreated to young Master Shun's side. She lowered her head and looked at her hands, blinking her eyes. She did not understand what was so special about a weak person like her compared to her young master. Checking the energy traces in the scroll, Yin Nuashing muttered, it can indeed be used normally. After all, they are true life forms of order. Although they possess energy that is not of order, you guys are life forms that are close to the edge of this level. Even your energy and soul are not of order. According to the rules of the realm of the gods, you guys are considered as non-life forms of order. That's why you can't use it. However, if you want to use the things that we left behind, it would cost an astronomical amount of energy. To them, if they could do such a thing, it won't affect them even if they do something worse. Young Master Shun let out an inexplicable laugh and took a sip of tea. After learning this information, he was even more determined. He would never admit that he was in cahoots with those lunatics. They continued to talk about this for a while. After exchanging information, Yin Nuashing stretched her body. Suddenly, a soft voice rang in her mind. "Feng Lingjun, ask about the coordinates." Hearing Qing Yu's voice, Yin Nuashing suddenly remembered that there was such a thing. She sat up straight and said, "By the way, I got a set of coordinates in this world. You have been here for a longer time. Take a look at where the coordinates are." Just as young Master Shun responded, he received the coordinates that Yin Nuashing threw in his mind. He was stunned when he glanced at it. This is the location related to the second seal. Where did you get the coordinates? That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.